All right, welcome to our reading of The Two Towers, returning cast from our last reading, except now we have Mr. Soren coming in, filling in for us on Elrond, as well as several other parts. And this is a long one, so we're just going to get started. Sarah, why don't you take it away?
All right. Exterior of the Misty Mountains day. Hide-wide Ariel on camera flies over the snow-covered peaks of the Misty Mountains. As the tranquility of the scene sinks in, voices disrupt the peacefulness.
You cannot pass.
Gandalf!
A faint crash sounds over the landscape.
I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor.
Hand closer to the side of the mountains.
Go back to the shadow. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun.
Track through the side of the mountain to interior bridge of Khazad-dûm, Moria day. The Balrog slashes at Gandalf with its sword of flame. Gandalf blocks with Glamdring. A ringing clash, and the Balrog's sword shatters into molten fragments.
You shall not pass.
The Balrog places one foot onto the bridge. Gandalf cries aloud as he summons his last reserves of strength. He thumps the bridge with his staff. A blinding sheet of white flame springs up. The staff shatters. The bridge breaks, right at the Balrog's feet. The stone bridge drops away into the gulf, from under the Balrog. For a moment, the great beast remains poised in the air. Then it plunges down. Slow motion. Relief floods Frodo's face. Gandalf remains trembling on the lip of the broken bridge. As the Balrog falls, he lashes out with his whip of fire. The thongs of the whip lash and curl around Gandalf's knees, dragging him over the brink. Gandalf just manages to hang on by his fingertips.
Gandalf!
Fly, fools.
No!
Gandalf lets go his grip and falls away, following the Balrog into the bottomless abyss.
Gandalf!
Track at high speed with Gandalf as he plummets. The Balrog smokes from below. Gandalf snatches Glamdring as he plummets headfirst behind the Balrog. Gandalf alights on the Balrog's neck and stabs Glamdring deep into it. The Balrog swipes at Gandalf, loosening Gandalf's grip. The Balrog swings at Gandalf several times before snatching Gandalf in his grasp. Another bounce off the close walls, and Gandalf falls freely again. Gandalf grabs a hold of the demon's horn as they continue their never-ending plunge. The Balrog bounces off the walls as Gandalf prepares to drive Glamdring into its head. Interior underground cavern day. At the uttermost foundations beneath the deepest delvings of the dwarves, Gandalf and the Balrog emerge like a small ball of fire high above an enormous body of water in a cavern without measure. Gandalf's eyes widen as they crash into the water below. Exterior Emyn day. Frodo awakens as if from a nightmare.
Gandalf!
Frodo props himself up, hyperventilating. Sam sits up behind him.
What is it, Mr. Frodo?
Nothing.
Frodo lies back down.
Just a dream.
Exterior Emyn later. Fog lays heavy over the rocky landscape of Emyn. Super the Two Towers. Frodo and Sam climb down a rock face toward the mist-covered ground.
Can you see the bottom?
Frodo looks down into the mist.
No, don't look down, Sam. Just keep going.
Sam clings to the rope and nods. He slowly continues. The rope is tied securely around a rock at the top of the face. Sam takes a step and loses his footing. A small box tumbles out of his pocket. He desperately reaches for it.
Catch it! Grab it, Mr. Frodo!
Frodo looks up. The box bounces down the rock. Frodo deftly catches it. Suddenly, he loses his footing and plunges into the mist below.
Mr. Frodo!
After only a few feet, Frodo lands softly on the ground. Stunned, he looks about for a moment and then up to Sam.
I think I've found the bottom.
Sam quickly climbs downward and walks away from the rope.
Bogs and rope, and goodness knows what. It ain't natural, none of it.
Frodo studies the small box.
What's in this?
Nothing, just a bit of seasoning. I thought maybe if we was having a roast chicken one night or something.
Sam looks at Frodo with the greatest of honesty. Frodo looks at Sam incredulously.
Roast chicken?
Sam shrugs.
You never know.
Frodo laughs and shakes his head.
Sam. My dear Sam.
Carefully, Frodo opens the lid to look inside. The box is filled to the brim with seasoning.
It's very special, that. It's the best salt in all the Shire.
It is special.
Frodo looks at Sam nostalgically.
It's a little bit of home.
Frodo hands the box back to Sam and walks over to the rope, still tied at the top of the cliff. He gazes upward.
We can't leave this here for someone to follow us down.
Who's going to follow us down here, Mr. Frodo?
Frodo looks at the rope, worried. Sam looks at it longingly.
It's a sham, really. Lady Galadriel gave me that. Real elvish rope.
Sam puts the box of seasoning in his pocket and walks over to the rock face.
Well, there's nothing for it. It's one of my knots. Won't come free in a hurry.
Sam tugs on the rope hard. The elvish rope unties itself and plummets. The rope lands at Sam's feet. Sam stands speechless for a moment, and then he looks at Frodo, who shrugs.
Real elvish rope.
Sam looks briefly at the bit he is still holding, and then at the summit far above. Exterior Emyn Day. Frodo and Sam climb over the rocky terrain to reach the summit of another part of Emyn. They look into the distance at Mordor. Mount Doom belches fire and smoke.
Mordor. The one place in Middle-earth we don't want to see any closer. And the one place we're trying to get to. Just where we can't get.
Sam turns to Frodo, worried.
Let's face it, Mr. Frodo. We're lost.
Frodo looks at Sam, scared.
I don't think Gandalf meant for us to come this way.
He didn't mean for a lot of things to happen, Sam, but they did.
Suddenly, Frodo gasps. From deep within Mordor, the blazing eye of Sauron looks directly upon him from high atop the Tower of Barad-dûr. Frodo shudders and turns away from the sight. He sits, panting. Sam turns to him.
Mr. Frodo?
Frodo continues panting, unable to respond.
It's the ring, isn't it?
It's getting heavier.
Frodo clutches the ring on his chest. Sam sits behind him and begins to go through his pack. Frodo fumbles for his water bottle and takes a deep gulp.
What food have we got left?
Let me see.
He takes a leaf-wrapped bit of elven bread from his pack.
Oh, yes, lovely. Limbus bread. And look,
He digs deeper into his pack and pulls out.
more limbus bread.
He breaks off a piece and tosses it to Frodo, then eats a piece himself.
I don't usually hold with foreign food, but this elvish stuff, it's not bad.
Nothing ever dampens your spirits, does it, Sam?
Sam smiles back, glances at his bread as if considering another bite, and then looks ominously off into the distance. His expression drops.
Those rain clouds might.
Exterior Emyn night. Frodo and Sam sit huddled together, wrapped in their cloaks. Rain beats mercilessly down upon them. Neither one sleeps. The hobbits shivering at the base of the rocks, harsh breathing sounds. A hand rests upon the edge of the cliff. Frodo suddenly looks up. The side of the rock face. Nothing is seen on its peak. Frodo shakes his head and huddles back down into his cloak. Exterior Emyn Day. Frodo and Sam climb over the rocks, walk along a path, scale the side of a rock face, walk along a summit.
This looks strangely familiar.
It's because we've been here before. We're going in circles.
Sam walks to an overlook.
What's that horrid stink? I worried there's a nasty bog nearby. Can you smell it?
Yes, I can smell it.
Frodo walks over to join Sam at the overlook. Frodo looks to Sam ominously.
We're not alone.
Exterior Emyn night. Frodo and Sam sleep. A dark, spidery shape appears on top of the cliff and makes its way down to the slumbering hobbits. The emaciated creature is dressed only in a tattered loincloth and appears mostly human in appearance. Its frame is quite thin, but its hands, feet, and eyes are oversized. What here remains is thin and falls where it may about its shoulders. It descends the rock face upside down like an insect. This is Gollum. He speaks in an ancient gravelly voice. Crane behind Gollum as he climbs down. Gollum reaches his hand out to snatch his prize. Suddenly, the hobbits spring and snatch Gollum off the side of the rock. Amidst the struggle, Gollum wriggles loose and throws them both away from him. As Frodo falls back, the ring comes out of his shirt. Gollum recovers and sees the ring. He leaps straight for it. Gollum desperately tries to get his hands on his precious, while Frodo struggles to prevent this. Sam recovers and grabs Gollum by the ankle, dragging him away from Frodo. Gollum reels back and hits Sam in the face, knocking him away. He pounces back on Frodo and reaches for the ring. Frodo grabs Gollum's hand and struggles against his considerable strength. Gollum's cheeks puff with exertion as he struggles with Frodo, his enormous eyes fixed on the ring. Sam comes up from behind Gollum again and lifts him off of Frodo. Gollum grasps Frodo, throwing him off to one side as Sam swings Gollum around. Gollum leaps from Sam's grasp onto the rock wall beside them, and then back on top of Frodo. Sam pulls Gollum off again, and Gollum turns on him. He fiercely bites Sam on the neck. Sam struggles against him, but Gollum reels around, wraps his legs around Sam, and tries to choke him. Sam falls to the ground atop Gollum, but Gollum continues to have the upper hand. Suddenly, Frodo grabs Gollum by the hair and holds Sting to his neck. Gollum's eyes go wide, and he freezes. He maintains a hold on Sam.
This is Sting. You've seen it before, haven't you, Gollum?
Sam tries to break Gollum's grip, unsuccessfully.
Release him or I'll cut your throat.
Slowly, Gollum loosens his grip on Sam and then wails. Exterior Emyn Day. Gollum's wail echoes across the vast rocky landscape of Emyn Muil. Exterior Emyn Muil Day. Frodo and Sam walk through Emyn Muil. Sam tugs on the rope, and Gollum stumbles behind them. Gollum continues to scream and wail.
It burns, it freezes. That's the old twisted to get off us.
Sam continues dragging Gollum, willing or not, across the rocks.
Why, you?
Gollum stops again. Sam tugs fiercely at the rope to try and get him to come along, but Gollum wails again, unmoving. Sam turns to Frodo in dismay.
It's hopeless. Every orc in Mordor is going to hear the Shreket. Let's just tie him up and leave him.
Gollum stops crying at once and turns to the hobbits, wide-eyed and pleading.
No, that would get us.
It's no more than you deserve.
Gollum wails again and collapses onto the ground, writhing. Frodo looks down to Gollum.
Maybe he does deserve to die. But now that I see him, I do pity him.
Gollum suddenly stops and turns to Frodo, smiling.
We've been nice to him as an illustrious. Get it off us.
Frodo and Sam look at Gollum warily.
We swear to do what you want. We swear.
There's no promise you can make that I can trust.
Gollum scrambles up and bows to Frodo desperately.
We swear to send the master and the precious, we will swear and the precious.
The ring is treacherous. It will hold you to your word.
Gollum crawls over to Frodo.
Yes, and the precious, and the precious.
I don't believe you.
Sam lunges at Gollum. Gollum jumps away, frightened, and climbs onto a boulder.
Get down. I said down.
Sam jerks strongly at the rope. Gollum crashes to the ground, choking.
Sam!
He's trying to trick us. If we let him go, he'll throttle us in our sleep.
Gollum lies panting and holding his throat. He backs away, frightened, as Frodo approaches him.
You know the way to Mordor.
Yes,
You've been there before.
yes.
Frodo reaches out and removes the rope from Gollum's neck. Gollum is surprised and relieved. Sam is displeased.
You will lead us to the Black Gate.
Exterior Emyn Muil Day. Gollum scrambles quickly through the rocky crags, looking back to make sure the hobbits are behind him. Frodo and Sam struggle to keep his pace.
To the gate, to the gate, to the gate, the master says yes.
Gollum sports an evil face.
No, we won't come back that down, not to him, they can't make us. Kill him, kill him.
He scrambles on further and stops atop a rock. His face turns suddenly soft.
But we swore to share the master of the precious. No, I said the dust and dust there is, and pits, pits, pits.
Sam and Frodo run up behind him, listening.
The Lurkers, thousands of Lurkers and armies are going down, watching.
He hides his face in his hands at the horror of the thought. Suddenly, he looks back to see Sam and Frodo. He lets out a frightening growl and runs off down the path. Sam starts forward. Gollum leaps down a rock wall and scurries away from the hobbits.
Hey, come back now. Come back.
Sam and Frodo try to follow, but he has escaped them.
There. What did I tell you? He's run off. The old villain. So much for his promises.
Gollum pops up behind a nearby rock.
This one's on a cage for the blue.
Frodo quickly runs after him. Sam, with a scowl, concedes to follow as well. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Crane down to a band of Uruk-hai runs across Rohan. Merry and Pippin ride on the backs of two Uruk-hai, their hands bound across the Uruk-hai's necks. Pippin tries to call to Merry, who is unconscious with a gash on his brow.
Merry! Merry!
Merry does not respond. Suddenly, the leading Uruk-hai, Mahur, signals a stop. He sniffs the air. Several orcs from the north emerge from behind some rocks. They are led by a short, crooked-legged orc, very broad with long arms that hang almost to the ground, called Grishnak.
You're late. Our master grows impatient. He wants the Shire Rats now.
Ugluk looks at Mahur amused.
I don't take orders from orc maggots.
Grishnak's face falls.
Saruman will have his prize. Saruman will have his prize. We will deliver him.
Ugluk turns away from the northern orcs. Grishnak mocks him as he walks away, but they make no move on the Uruk-hai. Pippin tries again to rouse Merry.
Merry! Merry! Wake up!
Merry's head lolls around, unresponsive. Pippin looks over to an orc drinking his draught.
My friend is sick.
An Uruk-hai turns to Pippin and growls.
He needs water, please.
Ugluk makes his way through the ranks to the prisoners.
Quick, is he? Give him some medicine, boys.
The orcs laugh and dump their orc draught down Merry's throat. Merry chokes on the foul stuff.
Stop it!
I can't take his draught.
The orcs laugh again as Merry chokes on the draught.
Leave him alone.
Pippin looks at Ugluk, afraid to respond.
You want some?
Pippin doesn't respond.
Then keep your mouth shut.
Ugluk turns and walks away. Pippin turns to Merry.
Merry.
Merry groggily lifts his head.
Hello, Pip.
You're hurt.
I'm fine. It was just an act.
An act?
See? I fooled you too.
Pippin smiles uneasily.
Don't worry about me, Pippin.
Mahur sniffs the air again. Ugluk appears behind him.
What is it? What do you smell?
Man flesh.
They've picked up our trail.
Aragorn.
Let's move.
The Uruk-hai break into a run. The northern orcs follow. Pippin struggles to remove his elven brooch from his Lorien cloak with his teeth. Once he has it, he spits it onto the ground. The brooch lands in the grass. The Uruk-hai trample it, but it remains unbroken and visible. Exterior Emyn Day. Aragorn lies on the ground with his eyes closed and ear pressed to the ground listening. Suddenly he opens his eyes.
Their pace has quickened.
He climbs to his feet.
They must have caught our scent. Hurry.
He takes off northward. Legolas is running up the hill behind him. He stops and turns behind him.
Come on, Gimli.
He runs onward. Gimli struggles up the hill. Gimli pauses in his steps and huffs.
3 days, a night's pursuit, no food, no rest, and no sign of our quarry but what bare rock can tell.
He runs after his companions beyond the boundaries of Emyn Muil. Exterior east wall of Rohan Day. The 3 hunters run along the edge of the cliff over a trickling stream at least 20 leagues below. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Pippin's elven brooch is still visible in the mud and grass in the open plains. A hand suddenly reaches down to pick it up. Aragorn draws it to his face and then looks ahead.
Not idly do the leaves of Lorien fall.
Legolas stops and turns to Aragorn.
They might yet be alive.
Aragorn briefly studies the ground and starts to run again.
Less than a day ahead of us. Come.
Aragorn takes off. Gimli stumbles from behind some rocks and rolls to the ground. Legolas stops and turns to him.
Come, Gimli. We're getting on them.
I am wasted on cross-country. We dwarves are natural sprinters. Very dangerous over short distances.
The hunters come over a hill and pause as they gaze across the open fields of Rohan.
Rohan, home of the Horse Lords, there's something strange at work here. Some evil gives speed to these creatures, sets its will against us.
Legolas runs ahead and looks out to the horizon.
Legolas, what do your elf eyes see?
A distant cloud of dust stirs up the otherwise serene view of Rohan.
The orcs turn northeast. They're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Saruman.
Exterior Isengard night. The Tower of Orthanc stands amidst the smoking caverns of Isengard. Smoke issues forth from amidst the now ash-colored land within the ring of Isengard. Interior Isengard, Palantir Chamber night. Saruman stands in his chamber, his hand hovering over the Palantir. Within the dark orb are swirls of fire.
The world is changing.
The view within the Palantir changes to that of Barad-dûr.
Who now has the strength to stand against the armies of Isengard and Mordor?
Armies of orcs march out of Barad-dûr.
To stand against the might of Sauron and Saruman and the union of the two towers.
Crane up the height of the Tower of Barad-dûr, now completed, dark and menacing.
Together, my lord Sauron, we shall rule this Middle-earth.
The flaming eye of Sauron atop the tower, watching the world. Exterior Isengard night. The beautiful trees of Isengard hacked down by orcs. Axes hack into the trunks, their carcasses thrown down into the pits. Interior caverns of Isengard night. Saruman walks through his domain. Orcs hack into the tree trunks. Orcs throw logs into furnaces.
The old world will burn in the fires of industry. The forests will fall.
Molten metal is poured into sword molds. Finished swords are cooled. Helmets are created. Swords are pounded into shape. Orcs add the completed swords to a large pile. Uruk-hai are birthed into creation. An orc inspects the finished Uruk-hai.
A new order will rise. We will drive the machine of war with the sword and the spear and the iron fists of the orc.
Exterior Isengard day. Saruman stands on a scaffold high above the caverns. Far below, hundreds of orcs go about their duties. Saruman turns to an orc overseer.
I want them armed and ready to march within 2 weeks.
But my lord, there are too many. They cannot all be armed in time. We don't have the means.
Build a dam. Block the stream. Work the furnaces night and day.
We don't have enough fuel to feed the fires.
Saruman looks up and smiles. The beautiful and enormous Fangorn forest engulfs the nearby mountainside.
The forest of Fangorn lies on our doorstep.
Saruman looks upon the view coldly.
Burn it.
Yes.
Interior Orthanc Palantir Chamber day. Saruman sits upon his throne. A wild man stands before him.
We will fight for you.
Swear it.
The wild man removes a knife from his belt, holds it before him. He places the blade against his hand and cuts deeply. Saruman smiles. The wild man clenches his fist. Blood seeps from between his fingers.
We will die for Saruman.
Exterior Isengard day. Saruman stands in the midst of a large gathering of wild men.
The horsemen took your land.
Saruman stands within a tight circle of the scowling men.
They drove your people into the hills to scratch a living off rocks.
Murderers!
The crowd descends quickly into a mob rule, quickly agreeing with the man.
Take back the lands they stole from you. Burn every village.
The wild men roar with approval and charge off to destroy for Saruman. He calmly walks through the pandemonium.
We have only to remove those who oppose us.
Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Several forces of men charge across Rohan, heading toward a small village.
It will begin in Rohan.
Interior Rohan Village Day. The villagers quickly gather their things.
Too long have these peasants stood against you, but no more.
Morwen packs necessities on her horse. She calls out to her children.
Yothien! Yothien!
A young boy and girl, Eothane and Frida, run to their mother with their bags. Morwen helps him on the horse.
We'll take your sister. You'll go faster with just 2.
We need a Frida.
Papa says Eothien must not ride Garulf. He's too big for him.
Morwen lifts Frida onto the horse in front of her brother.
Listen to me. You must ride to Edoras and raise the alarm. Do you understand me?
Yes, Mama.
Yes, Mama.
Frida starts to cry and reaches for her mother.
I don't want to leave. I don't want to go, Mama. Frida, I will find you there.
A scream breaks the moment. Morwen runs to look. The far side of the village is under siege. Villagers are running towards Morwen.
Quickly!
Morwen slaps the horse and it rides off with the children. Frida continues crying and reaching for her mother. Morwen looks after them sorrowfully.
Go, child.
Wild men and Uruk-hai overrun the village. The villagers try in vain to escape. They are cut down. The village burns in their wake. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Eothane and Frida weep as they look back. The village burns. Smoke billows into the air. Reluctantly, they urge Garulf on to Edoras.
Rohan, my lord, is ready to fall.
Exterior Fords of Isen Night. The aftermath of a battle lies in and out of the water. A torrential downpour lends a gray air to the omnipresent death. Eomer leads a group of Rohirrim horsemen onto the scene and surveys the damage.
Theodred, find the king's son.
The Rohirrim walk amongst the arrow-pierced dead, checking the face of each one.
Mordor will pay for this.
These orcs are not from Mordor.
He kicks one of the dead orcs to reveal the familiar white hand of Saruman.
My lord, Eomer, over here.
Eomer runs over to the riverbank where Rohan Soldier 2 waits. They roll over Theodred. Hope flickers in Eomer's eyes.
He's alive.
Exterior plains of Rohan Day. The Rohirrim ride to Edoras. Eomer leads, carrying a gravely wounded Theodred. Exterior Edoras Day. The horsemen ride into the city. The people clear a path for the riders. Exterior Medusel Day. Eowyn hastens up the stairs to the Golden Hall. Interior Theodred's bedchamber day. Eowyn enters and runs over to Theodred's bed. Eomer kneels beside it. She leans over Theodred.
Theodred.
Theodred's head lolls, unresponsive. Eomer nods to Eowyn. Eowyn draws back the covers and sees Theodred's fatal wound. She gasps, knowing the meaning. She looks to Eomer, who nods. Interior main hall, Meduseld Day. Eomer and Eowyn stand before the king, Theoden, who sits motionless on his throne, wizened and aged beyond his years. Eowyn kisses his cheeks and kneels before him.
Your son is badly wounded, my lord.
He was ambushed by orcs.
Theoden makes no response. He stares off into the distance.
If we don't defend our country, Saruman will take it by force.
That is a lie.
Grima Wormtongue appears from the shadows. He walks over to stand beside the king.
Saruman the White has ever been our friend and ally.
Eomer looks at Wormtongue with contempt.
Grima, Grima,
Wormtongue leans down close to the king.
my son, Grima.
Orcs are running freely across our lands, unchecked, unchallenged, killing at will. Orcs bearing the white hand of Saruman.
Eomer drops one of the orc helmets onto the ground, which topples over to reveal the white hand of Saruman. Wormtongue looks at it as if considering his words. Finally he speaks, but kneels down to Theodred, as if speaking to the king.
Why do you lay these troubles on an already troubled mind? Can you not see your uncle is wearied by your malcontent, your warmongering?
Eomer looks over to Wormtongue, surprised.
Warmongering?
Eomer grabs Wormtongue and pins him against a pillar.
How long has it since Saruman bought you? What is the promised price, Grima? When all the men are dead, you will take your share of all the treasure?
Wormtongue's eyes flicks to right. Eomer follows his glance. Eowyn pauses to stare back for a moment before departing from the hall. Eomer jerks Wormtongue again and clutches his hand around Wormtongue's neck.
Too long have you watched my sister. Too long have you haunted her steps.
Wormtongue's eyes flick to the left and right. He smiles as Eomer is suddenly pulled off Wormtongue by his thugs.
You see too much, Eomer, son of Eomund. Too much.
The thugs punch Eomer in the stomach.
You are banished forthwith from the kingdom of Rohan and all its domains under pain of death.
Eomer struggles against the men.
You have no authority here. Your orders mean nothing.
One of the men punches Eomer in the stomach again.
This order does not come from me. It comes from the king.
Wormtongue holds up a document with a sloppy scrawl of a signature at the bottom.
He signed it this morning.
The thugs drag Eomer away. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. The Uruk-hai and orcs continue to run across the open plains with their hobbit captives. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli continue to give pursuit.
Keep breathing. That's the key. Just keep breathing. Just keep breathing.
They run as if the very whips of their masters were behind them.
The two parties continue running over the vastness of Rohan from day through to sunset, neither the Uruk-hai nor the three hunters willing to stop for rest or breath. Exterior borders of Fangorn night. Merry and Pippin are suddenly thrown onto the ground. The orcs collapse with exhaustion beneath the boughs of the trees on the very brink of the Fangorn forest.
We're not going no further till we've had a breather. Get a fire going.
Several Uruk-hai break off and run into Fangorn forest. Pippin, hands still bound, crawls over to Merry.
Merry, Merry.
Merry opens his eyes.
Think we might have made a mistake leaving the Shire, Pippin.
Pippin laughs. Exterior Fangorn forest night. A group of orcs chops down the trees inside the forest for firewood. Low groans and rumbles issue from the forest. Exterior borders of Fangorn night. Pippin turns to Merry with fear.
What's making that noise?
Merry looks toward the forest. He smiles.
It's the trees.
What?
Do you remember the old forest on the borders of Buckland? Folks used to say there was something in the water that made the trees grow tall and come alive.
Alive?
Another groan issues from the forest.
Trees that could whisper, talk to each other, even move.
An Uruk-hai stares at a piece of bread and then throws it to the ground.
Do we need an Uruk?
We do.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
An orc looks up in agreement.
Yeah, why can't we have some meat?
Snaga's eyes grow wide and hungry. Merry and Pippin look over to the orc. They squirm uncomfortably.
What about them? They're fresh. They're not for eating.
And Uruk-hai stands the hobbits up and moves them off to the side. Grishnak watches their movements hungrily.
What about their legs? They don't eat those. They look tasty.
Grishnak makes a move toward the hobbits. Ugluk shoves him back into the orcs.
Get back, scum!
The orcs spring forward and scowl at Ugluk.
The prisoners go to Saruman, alive and unspoiled.
Alive?
Grishnak feints to one side of Ugluk to have another good look at the hobbits.
Why alive? Do they give good sport?
He looks to Ugluk.
They have,
Ugluk is unmoved.
they have something. An elvish weapon. The master wants it for war.
Snaga stealthily approaches from behind Merry and Pippin, licking his lips. Pippin leans over to Merry.
They think we have the ring.
Merry quickly shushes Pippin.
As soon as they find out we don't, we're dead.
Snaga rises up from behind the hobbits and raises his blade.
Just a mouthful. A flank.
Merry and Pippin gasp. Suddenly, Ugluk swings his weapon. Merry and Pippin shudder as Snaga's head tumbles to the ground between them. They turn around to see his body stand for a moment and then topple over.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
The orcs and Uruk-hai cheer mightily. They shove Merry and Pippin to the ground and tear at the carcass.
Pippin, let's go.
Their hands still bound, the hobbits crawl away. Suddenly, a foot comes down on Merry. Pippin turns over and looks straight into the face of Grishnak, brandishing a blade in his face.
Go on. Call for help.
Grishnak grabs Pippin by the face and pulls him closer.
Squeal. No one's gonna save you now.
Suddenly, a spear pierces Grishnak's back. He screams and rolls off of Pippin. Pippin and Merry look up to see who threw the spear. The orcs halt their feast and look into the darkness to find hundreds of horsemen burst onto the camp. The Rohirrim throw spears and quickly begin to decimate the orcs' numbers. Merry starts crawling again.
Pippin!
The orcs and uruks make a feeble charge on the Rohirrim. The Rohirrim mercilessly slaughter them with swords, arrows, and spears, all from horseback. The orcs and uruks run for their lives. Pippin looks around quickly in the ensuing pandemonium. He rolls onto his back and looks up to find a horse rearing above him. The hooves crash down. Exterior Plains of Rohan day. The dawning sun rises as the three hunters continue their trek across the fields at high speed. Legolas pauses and looks upon the sun with dread.
A red sun rises. Blood has been spilled this night.
Without another word, he continues on the hunt. Exterior Plains of Rohan day. At the top of a rise, Aragorn stops again to examine the ground. The sounds of horses neighing breaks the ear. Aragorn looks up warily. He gestures to Legolas and Gimli to hasten behind a nearby rock formation to hide. Éomer and his riders of Rohan ride over the hill. Aragorn looks up at them passing. He walks calmly out of hiding.
Riders of Rohan, what news from the mark?
The head horseman signals the pack with his spear. With astonishing speed and skill, the Rohirrim check their steeds, wheel around, and charge the three. Aragorn is joined by Legolas and Gimli. Together they watch the Rohirrim approach. The riders circle around the three hunters tightly, then suddenly stop and point their spears at the three. Aragorn holds up his hands in surrender. Éomer rides forward and addresses them from his steed.
What business does an elf, a man, and a dwarf have at the Riddermark? Speak quickly.
Give me your name, Horsemaster, and I shall give you mine.
Éomer hands his staff to another rider and gets off his horse. Gimli gives an arrogant nod at Éomer's approach. Aragorn puts a hand on Gimli's shoulder to stay him.
I would cut off your head, beard, and all, Master Dwarf, if it stood but a little higher from the ground.
In a lightning-fast move, Legolas knocks an arrow and points it at Éomer.
You would die before your stroke fell.
In a tense moment, all spears are trained on Legolas. Aragorn lowers Legolas's bow.
I am Aragon, son of Arathorn. This is Gimli, son of Gleon, and Legolas, son of the Woodland Realm. We are friends of Rohan and Theon, your king.
Theoden no longer recognizes friend from foe.
Eomer removes his helmet.
Not even his own kin.
The Rohirrim withdraw their spears.
Saruman has poisoned the mind of the king and claimed lordship over these lands. My company are those loyal to Rohan, and for that we are banished. The White Wizard is cunning. He walks here and there, they say, an old man hooded and cloaked, and everywhere his spies slip past our nets.
We are no spies. We track a party of Uruk-hai westward across the plain. They have taken 2 of our friends captive.
The Uruks are destroyed. We slaughtered them in the night.
Gimli springs forward.
But there were 2 hobbits. Did you see 2 hobbits with them?
They will be small, only children to your eyes.
We left none alive. We piled the carcasses and burned them.
Smoke rises from a pile in the distance. Aragorn looks away, dumbfounded. Gimli stands in shock.
Dad.
I'm sorry.
Legolas puts a hand on Gimli's shoulder in grief. Eomer turns and whistles.
Houseful, Arad.
2 steeds move to the forefront. Eomer lovingly places his hand on them.
May these horses bear you to better fortune than their former masters. Farewell.
Eomer puts on his helmet and returns to his horse.
Look for your friends, but do not trust to hope. It is forsaken these lands. We ride north.
The Rohirrim quickly ride off and disappear to the north. Aragorn looks toward the smoldering pile. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Aragorn on Hasufel and Gimli riding behind Legolas on Arad. They ride across the plains toward the edge of the Fangorn forest, where the pile of dead orcs smolders. Exterior borders of Fangorn Day. The 3 hunters halt their steeds beside the pile and dismount. They look upon the pile with dismay. Later, Gimli half-heartedly shifts through the smoldering orcs with his axe. He reaches down to retrieve one of the hobbit's sheaths. He turns mournfully to Aragorn and Legolas.
It's one of their wee belts.
Legolas bows his head and closes his eyes. Aragorn kicks a helmet. He screams a cry of anguished defeat and falls to his knees, hanging his head low. He sits in despair.
We failed them.
Aragorn turns his head. Something on the ground suddenly catches his attention. A glimmer of hope flickers across his visage as he notes some marks on the ground. He moves towards them and touches the spots with his hands.
A hobbit lay here. And the other?
He sits back to ponder the meaning of these marks. Intercut with Pippin's screams as the horse rears over him. He rolls out of the way as it crashes down. Aragorn's eyes shift to a new set of markings off to one side.
They crawled.
Pippin crawls across the raging battlefield. Aragorn tracks the hobbits with Legolas and Gimli closely following his progress. He points out the marks.
Their hands were bound.
Pippin reaches a fallen blade. He rubs his bonds furiously against its sharp edge. Aragorn comes upon a short length of rope buried in the trampled grass.
Their bonds were cut.
He continues tracking across the grass. Pippin frantically releases Merry from his bonds and pulls him to his feet. They begin to make their way to safety outside the ring of battle. Aragorn continues to follow their progress from the history they left in the dirt and grass. Merry and Pippin narrowly avoid horse, spear, and falling orc to make their way to safety. Aragorn points out their tracks in the ground.
They ran over here.
As he follows the prints, he notes another set alongside them.
They were followed.
As they flee, Grishnak, wounded on the ground, grabs Pippin by his belt and clings on.
Belt!
Pippin unbuckles his belt, leaving it with Grishnak. Grishnak throws it to the ground and crawls after them. The hobbits continue running at their top speed away across the plain.
Run!
Aragorn runs after their tracks, imagining them.
The tracks led away from the battle.
Merry and Pippin run right into Fangorn Forest and disappear in the trees. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are running and stop short of entering Fangorn.
Into Fangorn Forest.
The three hunters look into the dense and dark forest of gnarled trees so close together as if it is guarding against entry.
And gone. What madness drove them in there?
The three hunters continue to look into the forest, uncertain as to whether they should enter or not. Exterior Fangorn Forest night. Pippin and Merry charge into the looming forest, checking behind them as they go. They finally collapse on a bed of leaves and look about them. Merry and Pippin seem all of a sudden much smaller compared to the majesty of the ancient forest.
Did we lose him? I think we lost him.
Pippin and Merry turn in the direction of an approaching sound. Their expressions drop. Grishnak stumbles his way through the underbrush, looking for them. He holds his blade before him, ready to strike.
I want to rip out your filthy little innards.
Merry and Pippin hasten behind a tree.
Come here.
Merry and Pippin run across the forest, desperate for a hiding place.
Trees! Climb a tree!
Merry and Pippin quickly climb the nearest tree. Merry climbs to the lowermost branch and looks about the forest. Grishnak is nowhere in sight. Merry sighs with relief.
He's gone.
Suddenly, Merry is jerked out of the tree. He falls to the ground in a heap, and Grishnak looms over him hungrily. Merry kicks him in the face, but he is undeterred. Merry attempts to back away from his attacker, but Grishnak maintains his superior position.
Merry!
Pippin looks down, helpless. Suddenly, as if reacting to Pippin's yell, two yellow eyes flicker open on the tree. Pippin glances over to them and then back to Merry. Realization dawns on him, and he slowly looks back at the eyes. The tree grimaces and then turns its head to look directly at Pippin. Speechless, Pippin loses his grip and begins to fall. The tree lifts one of its limbs and catches Pippin in its hand before he can get very far. Grishnak raises his blade to pierce Merry.
Let's put a maggot hole in your belly.
The tree raises a leg high over Grishnak. Merry takes his attention from Grishnak and focuses on the tree. Grishnak notices Merry's expression and looks behind him. The tree brings its leg down and smashes Grishnak into the ground.
Run, Merry!
Merry runs, but is quickly overtaken by the tree, who takes a mighty step and scoops Merry up into his other hand. The tree examines the struggling hobbits as he continues walking through the forest.
Little orcs, Balarum.
Pippin stops struggling and looks at Merry wide-eyed. Pippin?
Oh, sorry. It didn't say that you said anything. I must have froze.
Oh.
It's talking, Merry. The tree is talking.
Tree? I am no tree. I am an ent.
Recognition dawns on Merry's face, and he smiles in wonder and delight.
A tree herder. A shepherd of the forest.
Don't talk to it, Merry. Don't encourage it.
Treebeard, some call me.
And whose side are you on?
Side? I am on nobody's side because nobody's on my side, little orc. Nobody cares for the woods anymore.
We're not orcs. We're hobbits.
Hobbits? Never heard of a hobbit before. Sounds like orc mischief to me.
He squeezes the hobbits in rage. Merry and Pippin squirm in pain.
They come with fire, they come with axes, gnawing, biting, breaking, hacking, and burning. Destroyers and usurpers. Curse them.
No, you don't understand. We're hobbits, halflings, shire folk.
They continue struggling in Treebeard's firm grip.
Maybe you are and maybe you aren't. The White Wizard will know.
The White Wizard?
Saruman.
Treebeard drops them at the feet of a wizard dressed in gleaming white with long white hair. Merry and Pippin slowly look up to the wizard. Exterior Emmanuel Day. Gollum scrambles upward through a narrow pass, with Frodo and Sam following close behind. He leaps up to a higher point as the hobbits trail.
See, we have little out here, we haven't seen here.
Frodo and Sam catch up to Gollum. He climbs atop a rock.
Very lucky we found you.
They stand at the edge of Emmanuel, overlooking the next part of their journey, with Mordor in the distance. Frodo walks past, but Sam pauses to give Gollum an evil look. Gollum cringes.
No, Hobbit.
He leaps after Frodo, putting a wide berth between him and Sam. Exterior the Dead Marshes Twilight. Sam's foot slips in a puddle of muck. He starts backward to get a view of where they're going.
The bog. He's led us into a swamp.
A swamp? Yes, come, Master. We will take you on safe past in the mist.
Gollum starts making his way across an invisible path across the wetlands. He looks back to the hobbits.
Come, hobbits, come, we go with
Frodo and Sam follow him. Exterior Ariel of the Dead Marshes Day. The Dead Marshes stretch for miles and miles, as far as the eye can see. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum appear as tiny as specks, slowly crossing it.
I found you, I did. The way to the marshes, orcs don't use it. Orcs don't know it. They go around for miles and miles. Quick to this, soft and quick the shadows from me.
Exterior the Dead Marshes Day. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum rest from the day's journey.
I hate this place. It's too quiet. There's been no sight or sound of bird for 2 days.
No birdies to eat, no consumer birdies.
Sam locates some lembas bread in his pack and hands some to Frodo before getting some for himself. Gollum pounds the ground in frustration.
We are famished, yes, famished we are, precious.
Suddenly, Gollum sees something on the ground. His eyes dart around following it before his hands move like lightning to snatch up a worm. He looks at it suspiciously, shakes it a little, and then slurps it down with a grimace. Sam grimaces as well and opts out of finishing his bit of lembas bread. Frodo breaks a piece off of his bread and tosses it to Gollum.
Here.
Gollum snaps around to look at it.
What does it eat?
He runs over to the piece on the ground and circles it like a hungry animal.
Is it tasty?
He picks it up and tosses it into his mouth. Almost immediately, he dramatically chokes on it and spits it out. Sam rolls his eyes and sighs. Gollum hacks and coughs.
It's so yes, we can't have it food, we must starve.
Gollum bawls and falls onto his back, whining.
Well, starve then, and good riddance.
Gollum crawls towards Sam.
Oh, cruel habit, it does not care if we be hungry, it does not care if we should die.
Gollum turns to Frodo, his eyes growing wide and innocent.
But not Master.
Frodo ignores Gollum's words.
Master cares, Master knows.
Frodo looks to Gollum, beginning to understand.
Yes, precious.
Frodo raises his hand to cover the ring hidden under his tunic. Gollum mimics his action, watching where Frodo holds.
Once it takes hold of us, it never lets go.
Frodo is tranced by the truth of Gollum's words. Gollum reaches out to touch the ring. Frodo comes to and slaps Gollum's hand away.
Don't touch me.
Gollum shrinks away from Frodo. There is a tense moment before Gollum backs away from Frodo and lies down on the ground. Exterior the Dead Marshes Day. Gollum leads Sam and Frodo into an area of the marshes where small flames burn on the surface of the mist-covered waters. Sam suddenly stops and glimpses beneath the water's surface. Pallid faces of dead men and elves float in the water.
There are dead things, dead faces in the water.
Frodo looks to the disturbing sight.
Dead, all rotten, elves and men and orcs, a great battle long ago.
Gollum stops and turns to the hobbits.
Dead marshes, yes. Yes, that's what I this way, don't follow the lights.
Sam slips into the water again. Gollum turns to them quickly.
Careful now!
Close on, the dead faces in the water.
Where hobbits go down to join the dead ones like in the candles of the world.
Sam warily follows Gollum, but Frodo is drawn toward the water. One of the dead, dressed in elven armor, it floats just beneath the surface with a disturbing peacefulness. Frodo draws himself closer and closer to the water. Sam looks around. His face drops when he sees where Frodo is.
Frodo!
Frodo pays Sam no mind, but continues to stare at the dead elf in the water. Suddenly, the dead elf's eyes snap open. Its blank, pallid stare looks straight at Frodo. Frodo registers surprise only for a moment before falling face first into the marsh. Sam bolts toward him. Interior, the dead marsh is day. Frodo floats beneath the surface. He looks about in fear. A decayed face silently screams and moves toward him, reaching out its rotten hand. Panicked, Frodo tries to escape. Two more dead grasp him from behind. The dead quickly surrounded him, grasping with decayed limbs. Another hand reaches around Frodo, and he collapses into the dead behind him. Exterior, the dead marsh is day. Gollum pulls Frodo out of the bog. Frodo gasps and sputters for air. Gollum drags the struggling Frodo completely out of the water and lays him on the ground. Frodo finally comes to and looks over to his savior in perplexed gratitude and disbelief.
Gollum.
Don't follow the light.
He crawls away. Sam runs to Frodo's side.
Gollum!
Mr. Frodo, are you all right?
Sam drags Frodo away from the swamp. Frodo stares after Gollum. Exterior, the dead marsh is night. Mount Doom chokes ash and fire, giving light to the night. The hobbits sleep, or so it appears. Frodo holds the ring in the palm of his hand, caressing it, gazing upon it. Suddenly he hears Gollum. He grasps the ring as if to hide it.
So bright, so beautiful.
Frodo quickly stuffs the ring inside his shirt. Frodo rolls over. Gollum crouches away from him, stroking the center of his palm, just as Frodo was doing only a moment before.
What did you say?
Gollum calmly turns to Frodo, still lost in his own reverie.
Master should be resting, Master the strength.
Frodo gets up and stands behind Gollum.
Who are you?
Mustn't ask us what it's business. Gollum!
Frodo crouches behind him.
Gandalf told me you were one of the river folk.
Hold the heart and hand and moan, hold with fatherless far from home.
He said your life was a sad story.
They do not see it like I said when Sam his friend and bird is dead.
You were not so very different from a hobbit once, were you?
He looks closely at Gollum, who tries to ignore him.
Schmeagol.
Gollum reacts. He looks up slowly. His face changes to that of surprise and wonder.
What did you call me?
That was your name once, wasn't it? A long time ago?
I'm dead. Smeagol.
A piercing cry breaks the silence of the night. Sam snaps around, waking up instantly. Frodo looks around quickly. Gollum gasps and lays close to the ground, trying to hide.
Black Riders!
Gollum runs off. Frodo grasps the ring and groans in agony. The faces of the ring wraiths bear down on Frodo. The Witch King reaches for the ring. Frodo collapses onto the ground, wincing. Surrounded by the ring wraiths, the Witch King reels back and stabs Frodo with his blade. Frodo lurches, reliving the act, clutching his shoulder. Sam runs over to him. He passes Gollum, hiding under a small tree.
Come on, Frodo, come on.
Sam drags Frodo across the ground toward Gollum.
Quick! Delicious!
Sam finally gets Frodo over with Gollum under the tree.
I thought they were dead.
Well, no, you cannot kill them. No.
Gollum and Sam look out to see if they can spot the ring wraith. Exterior, skies above the dead marshes day. Armored hands grip the reins of a flying fell beast. The ringwraith looks out from behind the darkness of his hood. Screams of the Dark Rider fill the air as the winged beast flies over the marshes. Exterior, the dead marshes day. Gollum whelps and cowers as the ringwraith swoops over their hiding place. Sam ducks, covering Frodo. Frodo's eyes roll back into his head as the shrieks of the Nazgul penetrate him. He clutches the ring at his chest. Gollum looks over to him, concerned.
I'm calling for the precious.
Frodo hyperventilates and continues clutching the ring as it tries to take him and respond to the calls of the wraiths. Sam grabs Frodo's hand and shakes him.
Mr. Frodo, it's all right. I'm here.
The ringwraith passes over them once more before turning towards Mordor. Gollum watches it go and then turns to the hobbits as they sit up.
Curry hobbits, the black kid is very close.
Exterior Fangorn Forest day. A dark stain dominates a leaf of one of the many plants on the floor of Fangorn Forest. Someone approaches. A hand touches the stain and brings it up to his mouth. It is Gimli. He spits out the offending substance.
Ah, orc blood.
Aragorn scours the forest floor, following the tracks of the hobbits. Legolas follows closely, and Gimli joins them. Aragorn suddenly halts, regarding his latest findings.
These are strange tracks.
The air is close in here.
Legolas looks about the forest as if feeling it.
This forest is old, very old, full of memory and anger.
Low groans reverberate throughout the forest. Gimli gasps and raises his axe.
The trees are speaking to each other.
Aragorn turns to Gimli, who is fearfully waving his axe about, looking for foes.
Gimli,
Gimli starts at the sound of his name.
lower your axe.
Gimli recollects himself and lowers his axe as if surrendering.
They have feelings, my friend. The elves began it, waking up the trees, teaching them to speak.
Fucking trees. What do trees have to talk about? Except the consistency of squirrel droppings.
They continue walking through the forest. Suddenly, Legolas senses something and runs off for a better look.
Aragorn, Nana and Anis.
Legolas intently searches the forest. Aragorn comes up behind him.
Mancini,
The White Wizard approaches.
The three hunters weigh the gravity of this pronouncement.
do not let him speak. He will put spell on us.
Aragorn readies his sword. Gimli grips his axe. Legolas knocks an arrow.
We must be quick.
With a yell, the three swing round to attack. A bright light envelops them from the wizard. Gimli throws his axe. It is shattered. Legolas launches an arrow. It is deflected. Aragorn's sword becomes red hot in his grasp. It clatters to the forest floor. The three hunters shield their eyes from the blinding light emanating from the White Wizard.
We are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits.
Where are they?
They passed this way the day before yesterday. They met someone they did not expect. Does that comfort you?
Who are you? Show yourself.
The White Wizard recalls his light. Slowly his face is revealed. Standing before them, dressed in all white, is Gandalf. Aragorn looks upon him astounded.
It cannot be.
Give me. I keep you for Saruman.
Gimli joins Legolas in bowing before the light of Gandalf.
I am Saruman, or rather, Saruman as he should have been.
You fell.
Through fire and water.
Exterior Durin's Tower, Silvertine, flashback. In a raging snowstorm, high atop Silvertine in the living rock of Ziraxagil, Gandalf faces off with the Balrog in Durin's Tower.
From the lowest dungeon to the highest peak, I fought with the Balrog of Morgoth.
Gandalf holds up Glamdring. Lightning energizes it. The Balrog charges Gandalf again. Gandalf plunges Glamdring into the Balrog. With a final cry, the Balrog falls, smoking, from the peak and lands on the icy mountainside.
Till at last I threw down my enemy and smote his ruin upon the mountainside.
High above the Balrog, Gandalf lies upon the snowy peak, dying.
Darkness took me, and I strayed out of thought and time.
Track into Gandalf's eye. A bright light erupts. Insert image. Death, birth, cosmic weirdness.
Stars wheeled overhead, and every day was as long as the life age of the earth.
White light envelops the image. Track out from Gandalf's eye.
But it was not the end. I felt life in me again.
Gandalf lies upon the ground, naked, calm, and still. His hair has turned white, and his wounds are healed. He suddenly utters with a deep gasp and pants as life returns to him.
I've been sent back
Exterior Fangorn Forest day.
until my task is done.
Gandalf.
Gandalf. Yes. That's what they used to call me.
Aragorn nods. Gandalf looks at Aragorn, smiling.
Gandalf the Grey. That was my name.
Gandalf!
I'm Gandalf the White,
Legolas grins.
and I come back to you now with the turn of the tide.
Exterior Fangorn Forest day. Gandalf leads Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli through the forest. He wears his elven cloak over his white robes.
One stage of the journey is over. Another begins. We must travel to Endorus with all speed.
Doris! That is no short distance.
We hear the troubles in Rohan. It goes ill with the king.
Yes,
Gandalf stops.
and it will not be easily cured.
Then we have run all this way for nothing. Are we to leave those poor hobbits here in this horrid, dark, dank, tree-infested?
The forest responds to Gimli's complaints with a low rumble. Gimli stops and looks around fearfully.
I mean, charming. Quite charming forest.
He smiles. The rumbling ceases. Gandalf turns to Gimli.
It is more than mere chance that brought Merry and Pippin to Fangorn. The great power has been sleeping here for many long years. The coming of Merry and Pippin will be like the falling of small stones that starts an avalanche in the mountains.
In one thing you have not changed, dear friend.
Gandalf leans close to Aragorn.
You still speak in riddles.
They laugh.
A thing is about to happen that has not happened since the elder days. The Ints are going to wake up and find that they are strong.
Strong. Oh, that's good.
So stop your fretting, Master Dwarf.
Gandalf starts walking out of the forest again.
Merry and Pippin are quite safe. In fact, they are far safer than you are about to be.
This new Gandalf's more grumpy than the old one.
Gimli trudges after the rest of the party. Exterior border of Fangorn Forest day. Gandalf whistles piercingly. It echoes off into the distance. He whistles again. As the echo dies out, a neigh answers him. A magnificent white horse gallops towards Gandalf over a nearby hill. Gandalf smiles. Legolas, standing with Aragorn, Gimli, and their steeds, looks upon the approaching steed in awe. Huh?
That is one of the mares, as my eyes are cheated by some spell.
The horse gallops across the plain and comes to a stop in front of Gandalf.
Shadowfax is the lord of all horses, and has been my friend through many dangers.
Gandalf walks up to Shadowfax and strokes his neck. Exterior plains of Rohan day. The three hunters make haste in riding across the vast plains to their destination at Edoras. Exterior Fangorn Forest day. Treebeard continues his slow trek through the forest. Merry and Pippin remain perched in his branches, helplessly led along to whatever fate has in store for them.
O Rowan mine, I saw you shine upon a summer's day. Upon your head now golden red, the crown you bore aloft.
Merry yawns.
Oh, such a beautiful verse.
Is it much farther?
Brara room, don't be hasty. You might call it far, perhaps. My home lies deep in the forest near the roots of the mountains. I told Gandalf I would keep you safe, and safe is where I'll keep you. I believe you will enjoy this next one too. It's one of my own compositions. Right.
Pippin settles into Treebeard and closes his eyes. Over the mist-covered trees as the sun sets, Treebeard plods along to his destination.
Beneath the roof of sleeping leaves and the dreams of trees unfold, when woodland halls are green and cool and the wind is in the west, come back to me, and say my land is best.
Treebeard looks over to the hobbits to find them asleep. Exterior Fangorn Forest night, Treebeard carefully lays the sleeping hobbits on the ground.
Sleep, little shirelings, heed no nightly noise. Sleep till morning light.
Treebeard stands back up and walks away through the forest.
I have business in the forest. There are many to call, many that must come. The shadow lies on Fangorn. The withering of all woods is near.
Treebeard slowly walks away from the hobbits. Exterior plains of Rohan night. Gandalf stands on the edge of a small hill overlooking the plains. Aragorn leaves the fire and joins him.
Trailing shadow that glowers in the east takes shape. Sauron will suffer no rival. From the summit of Barad-dûr, his eye watches ceaselessly. He is not so mighty yet that he is above fear. Doubt ever grows in him. The rumor has reached him. The heir of Numenor still lives.
Aragorn looks over to Gandalf to find him already looking into his eyes.
Sauron fears you, Aragorn. He fears what you may become.
Aragorn looks away, considering these words. Gandalf looks back to the east.
And so he'll strike hard and fast at the world of men. He will use his puppet Sauron to destroy Rohan. War is coming. Rohan must defend itself, and therein lies our first challenge, for Rohan is weak and ready to fall. The king's mind is enslaved. It's an old device Sauron's. His hold over King Theoden is now very strong. Sauron and Saruman are tightening the noose, but for all their cunning, we have one advantage.
Aragorn and Gandalf lock eyes again.
The ring remains hidden,
Aragorn nods.
and that we should seek to destroy it has not yet entered their darkest dreams. And so the weapon of the enemy is moving towards Mordor in the hands of a hobbit. Each day brings it closer to the fires of Mount Doom. You must trust now in Frodo. Everything depends upon the speed and the secrecy of his quest.
Gandalf looks over to Aragorn and sees the worry upon his face.
Do not regret your decision to leave him. Frodo must finish this task alone.
He's not alone. Sam went with him.
Gandalf looks over to Aragorn, surprise alighting on his face.
Did he? Did he indeed? Good.
He looks back to the landscape.
Yes, very good.
Exterior Ephel-Duath day. Sam and Frodo climb over a sheer rock face. They scramble to the top where Gollum awaits.
The Black Gate of Mordor.
The enormous Black Gate of Mordor guards the way to Mordor, with orcs patrolling and standing guard in the teeth of Mordor and atop the walls. Sam almost religiously looks upon the Black Gate and its battlements.
Oh, save us.
Gollum hides his face in his hands. Sam scrambles along Ephel-Duath and hides behind a rock. Frodo comes up quickly behind him.
Elgifer would have had a thing or two to say if he could see us now.
Gollum scrambles up behind them.
Master says to show them the way to Mordor. So once you does, Master says so.
Frodo looks upon the gate wide-eyed, only now comprehending the gravity of the request.
I did.
Orcs stand guard and patrol atop the massive Black Gate battlements. The hobbits and Gollum looking in wonder at the gate. Sam's expression drops as he turns to Frodo.
That's it then. We can't get past that.
An army of Easterling soldiers marches to the Black Gate on a path far below Ephel-Duath. A commander screams orders to the troops. The three shrink away from the edge of the overlook. The army marches steadily toward the Black Gate. A horn sounds their arrival. Gollum whimpers and cringes from the sound. Frodo looks to him for a moment and then returns his gaze to the army. Exterior Blackgate battlements day. An orc sounds the horn again. 2 enormous cave trolls work the mechanism to open the mighty gate. The orcs atop the battlements brace themselves as the gate slowly opens. The mighty cave trolls open the heavy gate, walking along a thin walkway patrolled by the smaller orcs. Exterior Efelduath day. Sam points to the black gate.
Look, the gate. It's opening.
The black gate slowly opens to receive the approaching army. Sam crawls to a rock at the edge of the overlook.
I can see a way down.
Suddenly, the rock gives way under Sam and races down the side of Efelduath with Sam riding atop it.
Sam, no!
Frodo scrambles after Sam. Gollum breaks from his cowering to look up as Frodo runs off.
Master!
Frodo runs and slides down the side of Efelduath. Exterior base of Efelduath day. Frodo slides to a stop behind a rock near the bottom. One of the Easterling soldiers looks up at the mountainside. A cloud of dust issues from the side of the mountain. Frodo darts from behind one rock, slides down Efelduath some more, and comes to rest behind another rock. 2 Easterling soldiers approach the mountainside to investigate. Frodo darts from behind the rock and reaches Sam, who is buried to his waist in rocks. Frodo struggles to free Sam to no avail. The Easterling soldiers come over closer. Frodo struggles desperately to get Sam loose. The Easterling soldiers are nearly upon them. Frodo quickly swings his elvish cloak over himself and Sam. The Easterling soldiers reach the base of Efelduath. They survey the mountainside. Frodo and Sam huddle beneath Frodo's cloak, not daring to breathe. One of the Easterlings stands almost directly over Sam and Frodo. They lie directly in the path of the soldiers, holding their breath. The soldiers stop in front of them and look at the mountainside. The Easterling soldiers look at each other for a moment, shrug, and rejoin their party. A rock in the gravel directly in front of the Easterling's position. The surface of the rock suddenly peels back to reveal Frodo and Sam beneath it. Frodo and Sam desperately dig Sam out. With Sam free, they scramble behind a nearby boulder. The army marches through the Black Gate. Orders are shouted to the troops and orcs. Frodo readies himself to run for the gate.
I do not ask you to come with me, Sam.
I know, Mr. Frodo. I doubt even these elvish cloaks will hide us in there.
They give each other a final glance and nod.
Now.
Suddenly, as they start to run, hands grab them from behind and drag them to the ground.
No, 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 Master!
Frodo and Sam look angrily at Gollum. Frodo turns desperately to the gate.
They got you! They got you!
Frodo tries to run for it again, but Gollum detains him.
Don't take it, kill him!
Frodo looks curiously at Gollum. Gollum looks desperately back to them.
He wants the precious. Everything he's looking for, and the precious is ready to go back to him. But we mustn't let him have it.
The Easterling army progresses through the Black Gate. A horn sounds. The gate begins to close behind them. Frodo tries to run for the gate once more. Gollum holds him back.
No! There's another way. There's another way. More secret and dark way.
Sam grabs Gollum angrily, spinning him around.
Why haven't you spoken of this before?
Because Master did not ask.
Frodo turns to him quickly. Sam tosses Gollum aside.
He's up to something.
Are you saying there's another way into Mordor?
Yes, there's a path and some shoes and then a tunnel.
Frodo and Sam watch the Black Gate close. Gollum buries his face in Frodo's cloak as Frodo turns away from his former goal. Frodo looks at Gollum.
He's led us this far, Sam.
Mr. Frodo, no.
He's been true to his word.
Gollum looks up at Frodo, hopeful. Sam shakes his head.
No.
Lead the way, Smeagol.
Gollum leaps away. Sam stares at Frodo in disbelief. Frodo tries not to meet Sam's gaze. He looks back at the Black Gate. The Black Gate closes completely. Exterior Ent Draft, Fangorn Forest, day. Merry wakes up. He looks around. Sunlight breaks through a few of the trees, giving light. A small brook bubbles down the center of the draft. Pippin sits on a root, drinking the water. Merry stands up and surveys his surroundings. He walks out in a daze.
Hello?
Pippin looks up, smiling. Merry looks out into the dark forest beyond the draft.
Treebeard? Where's it gone?
Pippin sits up, holding a bowl of the water.
I had the loveliest dream last night. There was this large barrel full of pipeweed, and we smoked all of it. And then you were sick.
Merry scowls quietly. Pippin lies back upon the root.
I'd give anything for a whiff of old Toby.
A low groan issues across the forest. The hobbits turn in its direction.
Did you hear that?
Pippin gathers his water pitchers. Merry walks in the direction of the issuing sound. Another groan breaks the silence of the forest.
There it is again. Something's not right here. Not right at all.
Pippin climbs off of the root to the ground and issues his own sound, a low grunt. Merry looks over to him, wide-eyed.
You just said something tree-ish.
No, I didn't. I was just stretching.
Pippin grunts again, stretching. Merry walks around Pippin, running his eyes up and down Pippin.
You're taller.
Who?
You.
Then what?
Than me!
I've always been taller than you.
Pippin, everyone knows I'm the tall one. You're the short one.
Please, Merry, you're what? 3'6" at the most?
Merry shrugs as if to say, yeah.
Whereas me, I'm pushing 3'7".
Another groan issues from Pippin, and he grows again. Merry's eyes grow wide.
3'8".
Pippin happily takes another huge gulp of the water. Merry looks on in shock.
3'8".
Pippin shrugs as if to say, yeah.
You did something.
Pippin shrugs again and smiles. He nonchalantly places the water bowl next to the brook. Merry looks at the water and then snatches the water jug and takes a huge drink.
Merry, don't drink it.
Merry takes off with the jug. Pippin chases him. He takes another drink, pushing Pippin away.
Merry, no. Treebird said that you shouldn't have any.
Pippin tries to grab Merry again, but Merry pushes him away and runs off to take another drink.
I want some.
It could well be dangerous.
Merry leads Pippin across some large tree roots.
Give it back, Merry!
Suddenly, Merry slips between two of the roots, and the tree groans and moves. It closes its roots to trap the ankles of both hobbits.
What's happening?
It's got my leg!
The tree moves its roots to trap the hobbits' limbs.
Merry!
The tree pulls them into its roots as others close in over them. Disturbed leaves from above cover the hobbits, making them virtually invisible as they scream. The roots finish the job and completely bury the hobbits.
Help!
Silence fills the air as the scene looks serene, as if nothing sinister happened at all. Large footfalls echo. Treebeard quickly approaches the tree.
Away with you! You should not be walking or waking. Eat earth, dig deep, drink water.
The roots move again, releasing the hobbits. With desperate cries, they free themselves from the tree's grasp.
Go to sleep. Away with you.
The hobbits shake off the leaves and stand by Treebeard, looking back at the tree roots in horror.
Come. The forest is waking up. It isn't safe.
Treebeard lifts the hobbits, one in each hand, and walks out of the forest. And walks out of the grove. Exterior Fangorn Forest day. Treebeard travels through the forest again, carrying the hobbits on his shoulders.
The trees have grown wild and dangerous. Anger festers in their hearts. Black are their thoughts. Strong is their hate. They will harm you if they can. There are too few of us now. Too few of us Ents left to manage them.
Why are there so few of you when you have lived so long? Are there Ent children?
Ah, Rarum. There have been no Entings for a terrible long count of years.
Why is that?
We lost the Entwives.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did they die?
Die? No, we lost them. And now we cannot find them. I don't suppose you've seen Entwives in the Shire.
Can't say that I have. You, Pip?
Pippin stares off blankly and then shakes his head.
What do they look like?
I don't remember now.
They continue their walk through the forest. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Aengelon, Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride across the plains. They stop on a rise looking across to Edoras. The four figures look upon a walled city covering a small mountain. Atop its summit is Meduseld.
Edoras in the golden hall of Meduseld. There dwells Theoden, king of Rohan.
Interior Meduseld throne room day. Theoden, great and ancient, sits upon his throne, head bowed, for he is hardly able to hold it up. Eowyn kneels beside him, holding his hand comfortingly.
Whose mind is overthrown. Saruman's hold over King Theoden is now very strong.
Eowyn gently strokes the king's hand.
My lord, your son, he is dead.
Eowyn looks at Theoden tearfully when he fails to respond.
My lord? Uncle?
Theoden stares forward a moment. His eyes are clouded, as if blind. Slowly he moves his eyes to look at her, but he remains expressionless.
Will you not go to him? Will you do nothing?
Theoden continues to look at her blankly. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. The three hunters sit atop their steeds, listening to Gandalf.
Be careful what you say. Do not look for welcome here.
Gandalf starts off. The three hunters follow him to Edoras. Interior Meduseld Theodred's room, day. Theodred lies dead upon his bed. Eowyn kneels beside him, weeping. A shadow moves in the hall behind her. She pays it no mind. Wormtongue appears at the door. He looks upon her, concerned.
Oh, he must have died sometime in the night. What a tragedy for the king to lose his only son and heir.
He sits on the bed and puts a hand on Eowyn's shoulder.
I understand. His passing is hard to accept, especially now that your brother has deserted you.
Eowyn jumps up and throws off his hand.
Leave me alone, snake.
She backs away from him. Wormtongue rises and moves over to her.
Oh, but you are alone. Who knows what you've spoken to the darkness in the bitter watches of the night when all your life seems to shrink. The walls of your bower closing in on you. A hutch to trammel some wild thing in.
He stops in front of her and stares into her eyes. She seems transfixed by him. He puts a hand on the side of her face as he speaks.
So fair, so cold, like a morning pale spring still clinging to winter's chill.
She closes her eyes as if affected by his words. He moves his hand close to her throat. She suddenly opens her eyes and looks through him. Wormtongue starts back away.
Your words are poison.
Eowyn abruptly leaves the room. Wormtongue appears taken aback by the sudden change in her. Exterior Meduseld day. Eowyn throws open the main doors and charges outside. She walks to the brink of the porch outside the hall and looks far off into the distance, as if hoping to find someone there. She walks impatiently from one side of the platform to the other. Far below, something catches her eye. 3 horses approach Edoras. The wind tears a flag off its mast and carries it across the city. Exterior gates of Edoras day. Gandalf, Legolas, and Gimli ride through the gate. As Aragorn approaches, the flag flutters to the ground. He looks to its source as if it were a bad omen. Exterior Edoras day. As the 4 riders ride through Edoras, the people eye them silently and warily, as if they come as harbingers of doom. Aragorn looks forward to Meduseld. A lady in white stands upon its porch, watching them.
You'd find more cheer in a graveyard.
Aragorn looks back to the hall. The lady has disappeared. Exterior Meduseld day. The doors of the Golden Hall open, and Hama exits, followed by a small detachment. The 4 climb the steps, and Hama meets them at the top. Gandalf leans heavily on his staff like an old man. He looks up to Hama and smiles.
I cannot allow you before Theoden King, so armed, Gandalf Greyhair. By order of Grima Wormtongue.
Gandalf nods to the others to surrender their weapons. Almost comically, they turn over every weapon they have, swords, knives, arrows, and axes. Hama signals to Gandalf.
Your staff.
Gandalf glances at his staff and scoffs innocently.
You would not part an old man from his walking stick.
He continues to look at Hama innocently. Hama nods, rolls his eyes, and then gestures for them to follow him. Gandalf gives a wink to Aragorn, who smiles in return. Gandalf follows Hama into the hall, leaning on Legolas's arm as an old man might for support. Interior Meduseld throne room day. Hama enters the hall and bows before the king. He steps aside to allow the four to enter behind him. Wormtongue leans over and whispers to Theoden.
My lord Gandalf the Grey is coming.
The four continue walking toward Theoden. Guards close the doors behind them. They notice several men behind the contingency of guards following them as they walk towards the king.
He's a herald of woe.
Legolas releases Gandalf's arm.
Courtesy of your hall is somewhat lessened of late, Theoden King.
He's not welcome.
Why should I welcome you, Gandalf Stormcrow?
He looks to Wormtongue for affirmation, who nods.
Just a question, my liege.
Wormtongue stands before them. He walks to meet them well in front of Theoden.
Late is the hour in which this conjurer chooses to appear. Late spell I name him. Ill news is an ill guest.
Be silent.
Wormtongue freezes in his tracks.
Keep your forked tongue behind your teeth. I have not passed through fire and death to bandy crooked words with a witless word.
He raises his staff to Wormtongue. Wormtongue backs away from it.
His staff!
He backs well away from Gandalf while addressing the guards arrogantly.
I told you to take the wizard's staff!
The men behind the lines burst through to attack. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli engage them in a fist fight to keep them from Gandalf as he approaches Theoden. Gimli tries to go forward, but Hama holds him back. Gandalf reaches out to Theoden.
Theoden, son of Thingol.
Theoden reacts to Gandalf with a wicked stare.
Too long have you sat in the shadows.
The three hunters finish off the guards. Wormtongue tries to crawl away unnoticed, but Gimli catches him and pins him to the floor under his foot.
I would stay still if I were you.
Gandalf continues approaching Theoden.
Hearken to me.
The people of the hall approach behind Gandalf.
I release you from this spell.
Gandalf holds out his hand and concentrates. Suddenly, Theoden laughs menacingly. Gandalf opens his eyes.
You have no power here, Gandalf the Grey.
Angered, Gandalf throws back his gray cloak and spreads his hands. A blinding white light issues from him. Theoden is thrown back against his seat.
I will draw you, Saruman, as poison is drawn from a wound.
He thrusts his staff towards Theoden. The force knocks Theoden back in his throne. Gandalf moves in closer. Éowyn rushes in, thinking Theoden is in trouble. She tries to run to him, but Aragorn stops her.
Wait.
A new aura comes over Theoden. He looks at Gandalf evilly and speaks in Saruman's voice.
If I go, Theoden dies.
Gandalf thrusts his staff again, throwing Theoden/Saruman back again.
You did not kill me. You will not kill him.
Theoden/Saruman leans forward with difficulty, hate welling in his eyes.
Rohan is mine.
Theoden/Saruman struggles against Gandalf's power.
Be gone.
Theoden/Saruman lunges for Gandalf. Gandalf smites him, and he is thrown back into the chair. Saruman flies backwards across the floor, away from the Palantir and Orthanc. He slowly rises, bleeding from the wound Gandalf left in his forehead. Gandalf lets out a sigh of relief. Theoden moans and falls from his throne. Aragorn releases Éowyn. She charges across the hall to catch him before he can hit the floor. Gimli makes to charge Gandalf, but Hama holds him steady. Éowyn holds Theoden up to look at him. His eyes clear. His hair changes from white strands to brown splendor. His face de-ages to a more youthful king. Éowyn smiles, overjoyed. Theoden looks about, confused, and finds Éowyn.
I know your face. Éowyn. Éowyn.
Éowyn weeps with joy. Theoden looks up and is surprised to see Gandalf standing over him.
Gandalf?
Breathe the free air again, my friend.
Theoden rises to his feet and looks over his hall.
Dark have been my dreams of late.
He looks down at his trembling hands.
Your fingers would remember their old strength better if they grasp your sword.
Hama runs to the king with his sword, Hebegrim. Theoden slowly reaches for it. Theoden wraps his fingers around the hilt and then slowly draws Hebegrim from its scabbard. Wormtongue trembles and tries to escape. Gimli restrains him. Theoden gazes upon the steel, feeling his strength return. Theoden's eyes darken. He turns his gaze to Wormtongue. Wormtongue shudders. Exterior Medusel Day. Hama and Gamling throw Wormtongue down the stairs. He lands hard on the lower stoop and groans in pain. Theoden walks down the steps holding Hebegrim. Wormtongue crawls away as he speaks.
I've only ever served you, my lord.
Theoden continues his advance towards Wormtongue.
Your leechcraft would have had me crawling on all fours like a beast.
Send me not from your sight.
Theoden raises Hebegrim to kill Wormtongue. Aragorn stops him.
No, my lord. No, my lord. Let him go. Enough blood has been spilled on his account.
Theoden looks at Aragorn and relents. Aragorn offers his hand to Wormtongue, but Wormtongue spits in it and scrambles to his feet. Aragorn shakes off the spittle. Wormtongue violently pushes his way through the crowd of bystanders. Those on the steps solemnly watch Wormtongue depart.
Hail, Theoden, king!
The crowd kneels before Theoden. Wormtongue charges out of the Edoras Gate upon a horse. Exterior Medusel Day. Theoden observes the crowd on its knees. He looks at Aragorn. Aragorn kneels before Theoden. Theoden turns to go back into the hall. He stops and surveys those standing on the steps.
Where's Theodred? Where's my son?
Exterior Edoras Day. 2 lines of soldiers form a pathway within a throng of people. Their heads are bowed low as pallbearers carry the body of Theodred between them. Upon Theodred's chest is a small bundle of white flowers. Theoden follows his son. Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Gandalf follow behind him. The people of Edoras stand closely, leaving only a small pathway through the center of the city for the pallbearers to carry Theodred. Cries and moans pierce the air. Exterior Theodred's tomb day. Eowyn stands near the tomb's open door. The pallbearers lower Theodred and pass his wicket between a path of people to the women waiting within the tomb to receive him.
An evil death has set forth the noble warrior. A song shall sing sorrowing minstrels, and will said that he is no more. To his lord dearest and kinsman most beloved, an evil death.
Exterior Theodred's tomb day. The closed door of the tomb, a small white flower comes into view.
Belmine.
Theoden looks upon the flower mournfully. He releases it, and it swirls down to rest with the flowers still within the earth.
Ever has it grown on the tombs of my forebearers.
He turns to Gandalf.
Now it shall cover the grave of my son. Alas, that these evil days should be mine. The young perish and the old linger. That I should live to see the last days of my house.
Theoden's death was not of your making.
No parent should have to bury their child.
Theoden breaks down, falls to his knees, and weeps.
Yours was strong and light. His spirit will find its way to the halls of your fathers.
Theoden continues weeping, not listening to Gandalf's comfort.
Whistle howl, Faerun, Theodred, Faerun.
Gandalf turns to return to Edoras, leaving Theoden to mourn privately. Something catches Gandalf's eyes. He stops. A horse trots over the ridge, ridden by 2 children. It is Eothane and Frida upon Gald Roof. Eothane falls to the ground. Interior Medusethromun Day. Eothane and Frida sit at a table in the great hall, ravenously eating. Eowyn stands and looks to Theoden. Theoden sits on his throne with Gandalf at his side, his head buried in his hand in deep thought.
They had no warning. They were unarmed. Now the wild men are moving through the Westfold, burning as they go.
Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli look at each other concerned.
Thick cotton tree.
Where's Mama?
Eowyn turns to comfort Frida. Gandalf turns to Theoden.
This is but a taste of the terror that Saruman will unleash, all the more potent, for he is driven now by fear of Sauron. Ride out and meet him head on.
Gandalf leans forward and puts a hand on Theoden's chair. Theoden looks at him warily.
Draw him away from your women and children. You must fight.
You have 2,000 good men riding north as we speak. Éomer is loyal to you. His men will return to fight for their king.
Theoden gets out of his chair and walks to the center of his hall.
It will be 300 leagues from here by now. Éomer cannot help us.
Gandalf moves forward to speak, but Theoden halts him.
I know what it is that you want of me, but I will not bring further death to my people. I will not risk open war.
Aragorn removes his pipe and leans forward to speak.
Open war is upon you whether you want to risk it or not.
Éowyn spins to look at Theoden and Aragorn. Theoden turns to Aragorn.
When last I looked, Theoden, not Aragorn, was king of Rohan.
What is the king's decision?
Theoden turns away from them, concern etched in his face. Exterior Edoras Day. Hama stands in the midst of the city delivering the king's decision.
By order of the king, the city must empty. We make for the refuge of Helm's Deep. Do not burden yourself with treasures. Take only what provisions you need.
The people of Edoras gather their things together. Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Gandalf walk among them.
Helm's Deep. They flee to the mountains when they should stand and fight.
Interior Rohirrim Stables Day. The four enter a Rohirrim stable and continue walking past the horses of Rohan.
Who will defend them if not their king?
He's only doing what he thinks is best for his people. Helm's Deep has saved them in the past.
Aragorn and Gandalf approach the stable of Shadowfax.
There is no way out of that ravine. Theoden is walking into a trap. He thinks he's leading them to safety. What they will get is a massacre.
Gandalf turns to Aragorn.
Theoden has a strong will, but I fear for him. I fear for the survival of Rohan. We need you before the end, Aragorn. The people of Rohan need you. The defenses have to hold.
Aragorn holds Gandalf's gaze resolutely.
They will hold.
Gandalf turns from Aragorn to Shadowfax. Gently he strokes the mighty horse's coat.
Great Pilgrim. That's what they used to call me. 300 lives of men I've walked this earth. Now I have no time.
Aragorn opens the stall door. Gandalf mounts Shadowfax.
With luck, my search will not be in vain. Look to my coming at first light on the 5th day. At dawn, look to the east.
Go.
Legolas and Gimli jump out of the way as Gandalf blasts out of the stable at top speed. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Gandalf rides across the open plains as fast as Shadowfax can carry him. Interior Rohirrim Stables Day. Two soldiers attempt to subdue a mighty brown stallion, Borrego, with little success. Éowyn turns to them, watching. Aragorn enters carrying his saddle. He turns to the struggle. He puts down his saddle and walks to them.
That horse is half mad, my lord. There's nothing you can do. Leave him.
Borrego rears and whinnies as Aragorn comes closer.
Fast. Still in new fast.
Aragorn signals one of the soldiers to go.
Silence nous, laissant de franc Gaffron.
Aragorn slowly reaches Borrego. He caresses the beast's coat. Carefully, he removes the ropes detaining Borrego. He hands them to the other soldier. Éowyn watches with wonder.
Henonym away? Castanoin? Oh.
His name is Borrego.
Aragorn snaps around to look at Éowyn.
He was my cousin's horse.
Borrego. Your name is Kingly.
Éowyn moves slowly to Aragorn as he speaks, transfixed.
Mans lestas brego, mans ene.
I have heard of the magic of the elves, but I did not look for it in a ranger from the north. You speak as one of their own.
I was raised in Raverndale for a time. Turn his fellow free, he's in enough of war.
Aragorn leaves Brego with Eowyn. He retrieves his saddle and leaves. Exterior Caverns of Isengard night. The industrial mechanics of the orcs have taken the place of the once beautiful trees, marring the landscape around Orthanc. The orcs work non-stop to their ends on the black ground. Interior Palantir Chamber, Orthanc night. Saruman paces the chamber, mulling over his loss to Gandalf.
Gandalf the White. Gandalf the Fool. Does he seek to humble me with his newfound piety?
Wormtongue enters slowly and moves to Saruman. Saruman stands suddenly still, a look of disgust crossing his face.
There were 3 who followed the wizard. An elf, a dwarf, and a man.
Saruman sniffs.
You stink of horse.
Wormtongue shrinks back and walks away.
The man, was he from Gondor?
No, from the north. He was one of the Dunedain Rangers. I thought he was, anyway.
Saruman suddenly shows much interest.
His cloth was poor, and yet he bore a strange ring. 2 serpents with emerald eyes. One devouring, the other crowned with golden flowers.
Interior antechamber, Orthanc, night. A book opens to a page showing a picture of the very ring Wormtongue described. Saruman sits back in his chair. Wormtongue stands behind him at the door.
The ring of Barahir. So Gandalf Greyhound thinks he has found Isildur's heir, the lost king of Gondor. He is a fool. The line was broken years ago.
Saruman closes his book and pushes it aside.
It matters not. The world of men shall fall. It will begin at Edoras.
Exterior Edoras main gate day. The Rohirrim begin to pour out of their city by the hundreds, carrying what they can. A solid line of people stretches across the plains of Rohan. Interior Theoden's room, Medusel day. Theoden prepares himself. Gamling stands ready behind him.
I am ready, Gamling. Bring my horse.
Gamling bows and walks to the door, silently, shoulders slumped.
This is not a defeat.
Gamling turns to him.
We will return.
Gamling bows to him and exits.
We will return.
Interior Medusel throne room day. Rohirrim gather things from the great hall and carry it out. Eowyn opens a chest and pulls out a sheathed sword. She unsheathes it and holds it before her, running her hand down the flat side of the blade, smiling. Deliberately, she practices her swing. Someone approaches from behind. She swings it behind her. Aragorn meets her swing with his dagger. Eowyn's face does not soften his gaze.
You have some skill with the blade.
With a swift move, Eowyn swings her sword, throwing Aragorn's arm and knife to one side, rendering him vulnerable and gaining the upper hand. He lowers his weapon. She does likewise and steps away.
Women of this country learned long ago those without swords may still die upon them. I fear neither death nor pain.
Eowyn resheathes the sword. She replaces it in the chest.
What do you feel, my lady?
She freezes for a moment. She turns to him.
A cage, to stay behind bars until use and old age accept them. And all the chances of valor has gone beyond recall or desire.
Aragorn shakes his head in wonder.
You are a daughter of a king, a Shell maiden of Rohan.
Aragorn sheathes his knife. He continues to look at her.
I do not think that will be your fate.
Eowyn gazes at him, unable to respond. He bows and exits. Exterior fields of Rohan day. Theoden, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli ride at the forefront of the people leaving Edoras. Theoden pauses atop the first rise to gaze back upon his city. The Rohirrim walk single file out of their city, following him, carrying only what they need. The Rohirrim speckle the landscape of Rohan in a single line leading from Edoras.
Theoden will not stay at Edoras.
Saruman patiently listens to Wormtongue and Orthanc.
It's vulnerable, and he knows this. He will expect an attack on the city. They will flee to Helm's Deep, the great fortress of Rohan.
The Rohirrim make their way towards the mountains where Helm's Deep lies. Some falter, some ride in carts. Ever so slowly, they draw closer to their destination.
It's a dangerous road to take through the mountains. They'll be slow.
Wormtongue speaks to Saruman and Orthanc.
They'll have women and children with them.
Saruman's eyebrows rise in response, and a grin crosses his face. Opportunity. Interior caverns of Isengard Day. Saruman makes haste to an orc commander within the caverns.
Send out your warg riders.
The orc commander sits above a pit. Shadows of fierce creatures dance on the walls, alit by fire, growling impatiently. The orc commander smiles and nods with pleasure. Exterior Ithilien Day. Gollum watches the water silently. Suddenly, he thrusts in, losing his balance, and falls wholly into the stream. A fish, his prize, flies out of the water. Gollum grasps at it desperately, causing him to slide downstream. Frodo and Sam come over the rise behind him.
Hey, Sticker, don't go getting too far ahead.
Why do you do that?
Sam stops and turns to Frodo.
What?
Call him names. Put him down all the time.
Because that's what he is, Mr. Frodo. There's naught left in him but lies and deceit. It's the ring he wants. It's all he cares about.
You have no idea what it did to him, what it's still doing to him.
He pushes past Sam and stops.
I want to help him, Sam.
Why?
Gollum looks about for the fish. Slowly, he realizes it is lost. He looks up at Frodo and smiles. Frodo's eyes dart to the side, away from Gollum, worried.
Because I have to believe he can come back.
You can't save him, Mr. Frodo.
What do you know about it? Nothing.
Sam is taken aback. Slowly, he walks past Frodo. Frodo turns to him.
I'm sorry, Sam. I don't know why I said that.
Sam turns back to Frodo.
I do. It's the ring. You can't take your eyes off it. I've seen you. You're not eating. You're barely sleeping. It's taken hold of you, Mr. Frodo. You have to fight it.
Frodo's eyes flare again.
I know what I have to do, Sam. The ring was entrusted to me. It's my task. Mine. My own.
Frodo storms away. Sam turns to him, shocked.
Can't you hear yourself? Don't you know who you sound like?
Frodo continues walking without turning back. Exterior Ithilien night. Sam and Frodo sleep. Frodo clutches the ring in his hand.
We want it. We need it.
Gollum watches them from a distance. Hatred is etched across his face.
Rest and the precious stolen from us. If it happens with the tricksy face.
Suddenly his expression softens and he shakes his head. His eyes grow wide as if looking at his Gollum half.
No, not master.
His expression turns to hate again. His head turns as if responding to the Smeagol half.
Yes, precious face, didn't teach you, hurt you, lie, but master's my friend. You don't have any friend, nobody likes you. Not listening, I'm not listening, you're a liar, and a thief, no.
Smeagol sniffles.
Go away, go away.
Gollum laughs at the very notion. Smeagol acts as if the exchange stresses him. He holds his head and speaks in a small voice.
Where would you be without me? Gollum! Gollum! I came dancing with me, with your eyes behind me.
Smeagol raises his head and looks at Gollum.
Not anymore. What did you say? Master looks after us now. We don't need you. What? Leave now and never come back. No. Leave now and never come back.
Gollum growls and bares his teeth.
Leave now and never come back.
Smeagol looks scared for a moment. Gollum does not respond. He looks around quickly, desperately. A smile breaks on his face.
Return to the way, the way he goes, precious.
He leaps from where he was sitting and dances about. Exterior Ithilien day. Frodo rests against a rock. Sam stands off, looking into the distance. Gollum suddenly runs up, clutching 2 conies in his mouth. He spits them onto Frodo's lap. Frodo jumps, startled.
Look, see what's little things.
Gollum smiles deliriously and then jumps around laughing proudly. Frodo smiles at Gollum and looks over to Sam. Sam is not so amused. Gollum raises a triumphant fist to conclude his happy little dance. He picks up one of the conies. He snaps the conies back. Frodo cringes, disgusted with this particular display.
Eat them.
Disgusted, Sam walks over to Gollum. Gollum digs his teeth into his coney, ripping a large chunk of raw meat out of it.
You'll make him sick, you will.
Sam snatches the coney from Gollum's hands, tossing him to one side.
Behaving like that.
Sam holds up the conies.
There's only one way to eat a brace of conies.
Exterior Ithilien campsite day. A pot of stew simmers over a fire. Gollum screams, horrified. Sam stirs it and adds herbs to the mix. Gollum looks into the pot.
What's he doing? Stupid Fred Hammond, it ruins it.
Sam looks at Gollum, offended. He returns to stirring.
What's to ruin? There's hardly any meat in it.
A faint bird call rings across the camp. Frodo turns to find its source. Sam continues stirring the stew, ignoring Gollum.
What we need is a few good taters.
What's taters, precious? What's taters, eh?
The calling sound continues. Frodo starts walking, searching for its source.
Potatoes? Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. Lovely big golden chips with a nice plate of fried fish.
Gollum spits at the very thought. Sam looks to him, proud of his imagery.
Even you couldn't say no to that.
Well, yes, we can spoil fish.
He scrambles up close to Sam.
Give it to us raw. Ingredients were nasty chips.
Sam brings up the ladle to have a taste of his stew. Gollum hops away. Sam shakes his head.
You're hopeless.
He sips the stew. Exterior Ithilien forest day. Frodo walks through the woods, still searching. The sound ensues again. Frodo looks in that direction and continues towards it. Exterior Ithilien campsite. Sam brings down his ladle and looks about.
Mr. Frodo?
Exterior edge of Ithilien. Frodo crawls to the edge of an overlook. A Haradrim army marches across the land below him. Sam and Gollum come up behind him.
Who are they?
Wicked men, servants of Sauron. They're called to murder the pilgrims, gathered in all armies to him. It won't be long now, he will soon be ready.
Ready to do what?
To make his war, the last war that will cover all the world in the city.
We've got to get moving. Come on, Sam.
Frodo starts to leave. Suddenly, Sam grabs Frodo's arm, entranced with the sight.
Mr. Frodo, look. It's an elephant.
Gigantic Mamukil carrying soldiers and supplies on their backs. These creatures look like elephants, but stand at least 7 men tall. They tower over the formations of soldiers below them. Sam looks upon them with rapture.
No one at home will believe this.
Frodo looks at Sam and smiles. They both gaze in wonder at the enormous creatures. The call sounds again. All 3 of them look about, wearily. Gollum slips off. Frodo looks after him.
Smeagol.
Suddenly, pandemonium ensues. The army is being ambushed. The Mamukil react to the onslaught. They throw men from their backs, who fall to their deaths. Cloaked archers fire deadly arrows. The soldiers fall one by one. One of the archers, Faramir, runs to the forefront to survey the battle. One of the Mamukil starts trumpeting and stomping towards Frodo and Sam, swinging his huge trunk and tusks, throwing men from his back. Frodo and Sam back away from the overlook in fear. Faramir knocks an arrow and fires at the Mamukil's driver. The soldier falls from the Mamukil and lands right behind Frodo and Sam, dead. The Mamukil tromps off in another direction. Frodo and Sam back away from the edge and look behind them.
We've lingered here too long.
Frodo begins to run off when he notices Sam is still watching the battle.
Come on, Sam.
Frodo turns and runs right into a Gondorian ranger, who grabs hold of him. Sam draws his weapon and charges the ranger, but another comes out of the trees and knocks him onto his back. The ranger with Frodo lifts him briefly and tosses him to the ground. A ranger holds his sword to Sam's neck, pinning him. Frodo desperately tries to escape, but the rangers detain him.
Wait, we're innocent travelers.
Faramir appears to challenge Sam.
There are no innocent travelers in this land, only servants of the Dark Tower.
Faramir walks past them to lead on.
We are bound to an errand of secrecy.
Faramir stops and turns to him.
Those that claim to oppose the enemy would do well not to hinder us.
The enemy?
Faramir turns to the fallen soldier.
His sense of duty is no less than yours, I deem.
Faramir rolls the soldier over with his foot and looks upon his dead face.
You wonder what his name is, where he came from, and where he really is evil at heart. What lies or threats led him on this long march from home, if he would not rather have stayed there, in peace.
He breaks from his reflection and turns back to Frodo.
War will make corpses of us all. Bind their hands.
Frodo makes a final fruitless effort to escape, but to no avail. Sam is violently lifted from the ground. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Gimli rides atop a horse led by Eowyn among the throng of traveling Rohirrim.
It's true you don't see many dwarf women. In fact, they are so alike in voice and appearance that they're often mistaken for dwarf men.
Eowyn smiles and looks back at Aragorn.
It's the beards.
Eowyn smiles and shushes him.
And this, in turn, has given us rise to the belief that there are no dwarf women, and that dwarves just spring out of holes in the ground.
Eowyn laughs. Gimli joins her and continues.
Which is, of course, ridiculous.
The horse suddenly rears up. Eowyn loses her hold on the reins. The horse gallops through the throng, throwing Gimli to the dirt. Eowyn rushes forward to Gimli, who struggles to get up like a turtle on its back.
It's all right. Nobody panic. That was deliberate. It was deliberate.
Eowyn helps Gimli to his feet. Theoden and Aragorn, riding side by side, laugh at the sight. Theoden glances at Aragorn.
I haven't seen my niece smile for a long time. She was a girl when they brought her father back dead. Cut down by orcs. She watched her mother succumb to grief.
Aragorn's expression turns dark and mournful. He looks to Eowyn. Eowyn laughs and looks to him as she brushes Gimli off. Aragorn looks back to Theoden.
Then she was left alone to tend to a king in growing fear, doomed to wait upon an old man who should have loved her as a father.
Eowyn looks back at Aragorn with the sun behind her and the wind in her hair, smiling at him. Exterior plains of Rohan Day, Eowyn walks through a makeshift Rohirrim camp carrying a pot of stew. She sees Gimli and offers him some.
Gimli?
No, I couldn't. I really couldn't.
Gimli walks away. Eowyn continues walking until she comes upon Aragorn. He looks up at her approach.
I made some stew. It isn't much, but it's hot.
She draws him a bowl, and he takes it. She hands him a spoon.
Thank you.
He dips the spoon in the bowl and fishes for a bite of meat. Immediately upon putting the morsel into his mouth, he freezes. His face registers the distaste of this morsel. Meekly, he looks up to Eowyn. He swallows hard and nods with the word yuck written all over his face.
It's good.
Really?
She begins to walk away. Subtly, Aragorn tips the bowl to pour out the distasteful mixture. Eowyn turns suddenly. Aragorn tries to catch himself, but ends up soaking his arms in the steaming brew.
My uncle told me a strange thing. He said that you rode to war with Fengo, my grandfather, but he must be mistaken.
King Theodon has a good memory. He was only a small child at the time.
Eowyn kneels down to him, shocked.
You must be at least 60.
He chuckles uncomfortably and looks away.
70?
Aragorn looks down and still doesn't respond.
But you cannot be 80.
He looks at her calmly and smiles.
87.
Eowyn's jaw drops. She stands momentarily speechless.
You're one of the Duandain.
Aragorn nods humbly.
A descendant of Numenor, blessed with long life. It was said that your race has passed into legend.
There are a few of us left. The northern kingdoms was destroyed long ago.
Aragorn looks down sadly.
I'm sorry. Please, eat.
She continues to stand by him, giving him little choice but to eat the distasteful mess he was given. Exterior campsite plains of Rohan night. Aragorn sits silently, smoking a pipe. His eyes stare off into the distance, his mind elsewhere.
The light of the even star does not wax and wane. It is mine to give to whom I will, like my heart.
Slowly, Aragorn's pipe lowers along with his head.
Go to sleep.
Interior Arwen's room, Rivendell day. Flashback. Aragorn lies on a chase, eyes closed.
I am asleep.
Slowly, his eyes open. He glances upward and smiles. Arwen stands above him, smiling back at him.
This is a dream?
Arwen bends down to kiss him.
Then it is a good dream.
They kiss lightly. Aragorn relishes the touch of her skin again. Arwen pulls back and strokes his cheek.
Sleep.
She runs her fingers over his eyes to close them and kisses him. Aragorn appears at peace. Arwen stands and then walks to a doorway that overlooks Rivendell. Aragorn opens his eyes. He turns his head to look at her.
Minlu Penichnin Irabon Telefra.
U I vesed na I onad boy edich go Frodo han badlin.
Aragorn stands and walks to Arwen. He takes her in his arms and steers off into the distance.
Dolenin van on Minlu.
Si pelenanin I vad na dailin si boy u danathash.
Arwen?
Arwen places her fingers on his lips, silencing his fears and doubts. She runs her fingers down his chin.
I estulashnad.
To rest on the Evenstar pendant around his neck.
Estereo han estereo amen.
Aragorn takes her hand in his. They kiss passionately in the gleaming sunlight of the Rivendell morning. Exterior plains of Rohan day. The Evenstar pendant around Aragorn's neck. Aragorn leads his horse to Helm's Deep, distracted by the memory of Arwen.
Where is she?
Aragorn turns. Eowyn looks at him nervously.
The woman who gave you that jewel.
Aragorn says nothing and continues walking. Exterior Rivendell day flashback. Elrond stands before Aragorn.
Our time here is ending. Arwen's time is ending. Let her go. Let her take the ship into the west. Let her bear away her love for you to the undying lands. There it will be evergreen.
But never more than memory.
I will not leave my daughter here to die.
She stays because she still has hope.
She stays for you. She belongs with her people.
Aragorn leaves Elrond without another word. Exterior Rivendell day flashback. Aragorn walks down the stairs to join the fellowship at the Rivendell gate. He checks his weapons and garments in preparation as he walks. Arwen emerges from behind a pillar. Aragorn pauses and turns to her. He continues walking. She follows.
Manataki guanathash or minual chimed.
Arwen finally stands in front of him, forcing him to stop.
Ooh, Ethelaton.
He tries to walk past her.
Hysteria grulin nen dakur etheliak thas.
Yubedin Ogus de Dago.
Arwen gently grabs his arm and stands before him again. He stops, trying not to meet her gaze.
Oh man, Petty.
Aragorn looks at the ground momentarily, then into her eyes.
Other than Menagui Athel, Heo, Aus, Ainir, Eneth.
Why are you saying this?
I am mortal. You are elfkind. It was a dream, Marlin. Nothing more.
I don't believe you.
He takes Arwen's hand and turns it open. She looks down. He opens his hand to reveal the Evenstar pendant. He looks back to her.
This belongs to you.
Arwen looks at Aragorn with all the composure she can muster.
It was a gift.
She closes his hand around the pendant.
Keep it.
Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Aragorn continues to gaze off, flooded with the painful memory of his departure from Arwen. Éowyn endeavors to break his musing.
My lord?
Aragorn looks at Éowyn to give up his story.
She is sailing to the Undying Lands with all that is left of her king.
Éowyn turns quickly away from him, digesting this. Gimli and Hama ride through the crowds to scout ahead. They ride over the ridge, distracting Legolas, who is watching the horizon as they pass. They reach a tall formation of rocks. Their horses become uneasy.
What is it, Hama?
I'm not sure.
High atop the rocks, an orc warg rider watches them. Suddenly, the warg rider charges down the rock face and attacks Hama. Hama is knocked from his steed to the ground. He rolls over as the warg bears down upon him. Aragorn and Éowyn look up to hear Hama's cries. Gimli draws his sword.
Wargs!
The warg throws Hama away and turns to Gimli. The two warriors clash. Legolas leaps from his lookout point and fires an arrow, felling the warg and throwing his rider to the ground. Aragorn runs atop the ridge. Legolas bears down on the orc and slices his throat.
Scout.
Aragorn runs back down the hill to Theoden, who rides toward him.
What is it? What do you see?
Warg, we are under attack.
The crowd is instantly reduced to a blind panic. The people scream and turn back to Edoras. Aragorn makes his way through the crowd to Éowyn and his horse. Theoden turns back to the troops.
All riders to the head of the column.
Gimli tries to mount Arad. Gimli tries to mount Arad.
Come on. Get him up here. I'm a rider.
With some help, Gimli succeeds.
Come on.
He spurs the horse onward and almost falls off. Legolas runs across the plain to the top of another ridge, overlooking a vast plain. Over the next hill come a large number of warg riders, barking and kicking up dust as they ride. Theoden rides to Éowyn, mounting her horse.
You must lead the people to Helm's Deep, and make haste.
I can fight.
No.
Éowyn holds Theoden's gaze for a moment.
You must do this. For me.
Reluctantly, Éowyn agrees. Theoden turns his horse to the battle.
Follow me.
Theoden charges forward. The warriors follow. Aragorn spurs Brago onward as he mounts. Arad, Gimli on his back, walks backward.
Forward! Charge forward!
Éowyn leads the people away from the battle.
Make for the lower ground.
Gimli finally succeeds in moving Arad forward. He holds on unsteadily as the horse gallops.
That's it. Go on.
Éowyn manages to get everyone moving in the same direction. She continues to rally them to her.
Stay together.
The Rohirrim horsemen ride together under their standard up the hill to confront the warg riders. Aragorn turns for a final glance to Éowyn and the villagers. Éowyn turns for a final glance to Aragorn and the horsemen. Their eyes lock for a moment before Aragorn turns and heads for the battle. The horsemen ride up the hill into battle. Atop the ridge, Legolas fires arrows into the ranks of the warg riders, hitting his mark each time. The Rohirrim ride over the hill. Legolas turns and joins Gimli on Arad. The two armies ride towards each other. Theoden and the war commander give their armies the signal. The two armies clash on the field of battle. Riders are knocked from their mounts. Spears, arrows, teeth, and swords make contact. The bloodthirsty wargs maul fallen men and horses. Gimli falls from Arid. He stands, facing off against a hungry warg. Gimli readies himself.
Bring your pretty face to my ox.
The warg charges. Gimli prepares to make contact. Suddenly, Legolas rides by and kills the warg with a well-placed arrow.
That counts as mine!
A warg attacks Gimli from behind. He kills the creature with his axe, but as it falls, Gimli is pinned under it. The battle rages on. Aragorn and Theoden deftly dispatch orcs with their swords. An archer fires arrow after arrow at the attackers before a warg mauls him. Riders are knocked from their mounts. Gimli tries to lift the warg off of him.
Stinking creature.
An orc leans over the dead warg. Gimli's eyes widen. The orc raises a short sword. Gimli grabs the orc's head and breaks his neck. The orc collapses on the growling heap. Gimli sniffs and grimaces with disgust. A warg looks over his fallen brethren and finds Gimli. Gimli's eyes widen again as he realizes he is at the creature's mercy. Aragorn looks over and spots Gimli's predicament. The warg closes in for the kill. Aragorn rides toward Gimli. He snatches a spear from the ground and skewers the warg. It falls, adding to the weight Gimli is currently carrying. Gimli moans in pain. Battle rages on. A warg takes Aragorn off guard and knocks him from Hasufel. One of the riders, Sharku, charges Aragorn and attempts to take him out. Aragorn grabs the orc's arm and pulls himself to the back of the warg behind Sharku. They charge across the plains. Sharku butts Aragorn off the warg, but Aragorn holds to the warg's coarse hair. Dragged across the field, Aragorn draws his dagger and swings at Sharku. Sharku kicks him back down. Finally, Aragorn stabs Sharku. The two grasp at each other. Aragorn throws Sharku from the warg, but Aragorn is unable to let go. His hand is wrapped in the creature's saddle. The warg charges across the field of battle. A drop-off approaches quickly. Aragorn desperately tries to disentangle himself. The warg charges over the edge. Aragorn falls with him. Gimli axes a fallen warg. He looks about. All over the plains, the warg riders are retreating, still being removed from this life by Rohirrim horsemen. Legolas walks across the field, looking about suddenly.
Aragorn.
Gimli seems to notice Aragorn missing as well. He looks about, worried.
Aragorn?
Theoden also looks around amongst the men near him. Legolas and Gimli approach the drop-off. They look over the ground. Legolas looks up to an orc who is laughing raspily. It is Sharku. Legolas and Gimli approach him. Gimli holds his axe threateningly over Sharku's head.
Tell me what happened, and I will ease your passing.
He's dead.
Sharku laughs.
Took a little tumble off the cliff.
Theoden turns to the cliff. Legolas bends down and grabs Sharku by the shirt.
Lie.
Sharku chortles and dies with a smile. Legolas roughly releases him. Something in the orc's hand catches his eye. He takes the item. Legolas holds the Evenstar pendant. His expression changes to worry. He quickly joins Theoden at the drop-off with Gimli close behind. Down the sheer cliff to the rushing water below, there is no sign of either the warg or Aragorn. Legolas and Gimli desperately scan the ravine for Aragorn. Gimli runs up behind Theoden. Theoden turns to him.
Get the wounded on horses. The wolves of Isengard will return. Leave the dead.
Gimli acknowledges and runs back to the ranks. Legolas looks at Theoden with an expression of perplexed anger. Theoden puts a comforting hand on Legolas' shoulder.
Come.
Theoden leaves Legolas and Gimli staring at the river. Legolas looks at the Evenstar, not wanting to believe the truth. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. The line of Rohirrim stretches far behind them. They look up and cry with delight.
Helm's Deep.
They begin running for their refuge. Eowyn walks to the forefront. In the distance, nestled in the shadow of Three Hern, lay Helm's Deep. Eowyn stands upon the rise, looking into the Westfold Vale to the gorge where Helm's Deep lies. Eowyn looks upon the sight, mixed with relief and dread. She follows the Rohirrim down. Exterior Helm's Deep Day. Soldiers open the mighty doors. Eowyn enters, followed by the throng from Edoras. The roads are lined with the soldiers and people of Rohan. All those of the land of Rohan who were driven from their homes have taken refuge there. Soldiers man the battlements around the Helm's Deep wall. People continue to flow in. Inside the walls is a flurry of activity. Eothane and Frida run through the masses.
Mama! Evian, Frida!
The children embrace their mother again. Eowyn assesses supplies.
Where is the rest?
Do we have an Aldor?
This is all we could say, my lady.
The food supply consists of perhaps a dozen bags and about the same number of baskets of food.
Take it to the caves.
Make way for the king!
Eowyn breaks into a run to meet the returning soldiers. The horsemen ride into Helm's Deep and up the roads.
Make way for Theoden! Make way for the king!
Eowyn runs through the city to meet them. She surveys their numbers quickly.
So few of you have returned.
Theoden turns to her, finding his words. He averts his gaze as much as possible.
Our people are safe.
He turns to assist a wounded soldier who was riding with him.
We have paid for it with many lives.
Gimli solemnly approaches Eowyn.
My lady.
She turns to him, worried.
Lord Aragorn? Where is he?
He fell.
Eowyn's eyes grow wide. Her mouth drops open, speechless. She turns to look at Theoden. Theoden catches her glance and turns away, confirming Gimli's statement. Visibly shaken, Eowyn sits to recover herself. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements day. Theoden stands overlooking the land outside of Helm's Deep. He addresses the soldiers and men accompanying him.
Draw all our forces behind the wall, bar the gate, instead of watching the surround.
Theoden turns to leave the battlements. The men follow.
What of those who cannot fight, my lord? The women and children.
Get them into the caves.
Exterior Helm's Deep day. Theoden leads his men down from the battlements and past the deeping stream, which flows through it via a grate in the wall.
Saruman's arm will have grown long indeed if he thinks he can reach us here.
Track in on the grate in the wall.
Helm's Deep has one weakness. Its outer wall is solid stone, but for a small culvert at the base, which is little more than a drain.
Interior Orthanc antechamber day. Saruman pours gunpowder into a large stone pot.
How? How can fire undo stone? What kind of device could bring down the wall?
Wormtongue leans over the pot, holding a candle. Saruman reaches out his hand to stay the candle's approach. Saruman pushes Wormtongue away from the pot.
If the wall is breached, Helm's Deep will fall.
Saruman walks through Orthanc. Wormtongue follows closely.
Even if it is breached, it would take a number beyond reckoning, thousands to storm the keep.
Saruman approaches his balcony, which overlooks Isengard.
Tens of thousands.
But my lord, there is no such force.
Saruman and Wormtongue walk onto the balcony as a horn sounds. Saruman's tens of thousands of Uruk-hai stand ready upon the wrecked field of Isengard. The ground simply appears covered in a black seething mass of neat rows and columns. Wormtongue's jaw drops in awe. Saruman holds up his hand to calm his army.
A new power is rising. Its victory is at hand.
The Uruk-hai cheer and roar. Saruman holds out his hand to calm them.
This night, the land would be stained with the blood of Rohan.
Track away from Orthanc down through the massive spears, which travel so far. Saruman appears as only a speck on the obsidian tower of Orthanc. Even at such a distance, Saruman is clearly heard.
March to Helm's Deep. Leave none alive.
Saruman raises his hands in anticipated triumph.
To war.
The army cheers and roars even louder. Wormtongue stands awed and frightened. Saruman looks over the army grimly.
There will be no dawn for men.
Exterior Isengard day. The massive Uruk-hai army marches to war at Helm's Deep. Exterior Fangorn Forest day. Amidst the lush foliage of Fangorn, Treebeard continues his own march with Merry and Pippin in tow. In the distance, Orthanc is clearly visible in the ring of Isengard. A dark shape moves across the land towards Rohan. Pippin spots Isengard in the distance.
Look, there's smoke to the south.
There's always smoke rising from Isengard these days.
Mary reacts to the mention of the name.
Isengard.
Mary climbs up Treebeard for a better view.
There was a time when Saruman would walk in my woods.
Pippin sees Mary climbing, so he climbs too. Treebeard pays them little mind.
But now he has a mind of metal and wheels. He no longer cares for growing things.
Mary and Pippin reach the upper branches of Treebeard, just above the tops of the trees.
What is it?
On the fields of Isengard, the flood of the Uruk-hai army marches. Mary and Pippin ride atop Treebeard, worried.
It's Saruman's army. The war has started.
Exterior River Day. Aragorn floats atop the water, unconscious. His body comes to rest on a bank of rocks. Intercut with Arwen lying in Rivendell. Aragorn remains unconscious at the river. Suddenly, Arwen leans in above Aragorn and kisses him gently. Aragorn opens his eyes.
May the grace of Valar protect you.
Arwen fades out. Aragorn takes a deep breath. Exterior riverbank. Aragorn lies unconscious on the riverbank. Suddenly, a horse hoof steps next to his head. It grunts and nudges Aragorn over and over until he stirs.
Brago?
Brago drops to his knees. Aragorn takes hold of Brago's mane and pulls himself onto Brago's back. Once Aragorn is safely aboard, Brago stands and carries him away. Exterior plains of Rohan Day. Brago carries a weary and beaten Aragorn across the distance towards Helm's Deep. Interior Arwen's room, Rivendell. Arwen lies on her bed deep in thought. A voice startles her.
Arwen?
Arwen turns to Elrond at her door and sits up.
Tolen Ailu, I Cha Gwanar na Valinor. Sibado no Sirar.
Arwen looks at him impassively.
I have made my choice.
Elrond approaches her.
He's not coming back. Why do you linger here when there is no hope?
There is still hope.
Elrond walks toward the window and looks away from her.
If Aragorn survives this war, you will still be parted. If Sauron is defeated and Aragorn made king, and all that you hope for comes true, you will still have to taste the bitterness of mortality. Whether by the sword or the slow decay of time, Aragorn will die.
Insert image. Aragorn lies in state holding Anduril in the courtyard of the kings at Minas Tirith. His hair is grayed many years. Arwen stands over him, mourning his passing. A line of mourners pass behind them.
And there will be no comfort for you, no comfort to ease the pain of his passing.
Crossfade to a stone monument of Aragorn lying on the table. All around, Minas Tirith has fallen into grave disrepair. To one side on his tomb, Arwen stands, still dressed in black as an eternal widow.
He will come to death, an image of the splendor of the King of Men, in glory undimmed before the breaking of the world. But you, my daughter, you will linger on in the darkness, and in doubt as nightfall in the winter that comes without a star.
Arwen, veiled in her grief, young and beautiful.
Here you will dwell, bound to your grief.
Arwen walks through the dead forest of Lothlorien. Sunlight splays through long-standing carcasses of the trees.
Under the fading trees until all the world has changed and the long years of your life are utterly spent.
Elrond, once again standing at the window in Arwen's room. Arwen, a tear streams down her face. Elrond turns from the window to face her.
Arwen?
Arwen breathes deeply, torn by her love for Aragorn and her love for her father.
There is nothing for you here, only death.
Arwen raises her tear-worn eyes to him. Elrond walks over to her and sits beside her. He brushes his hand gently across her face.
Aim u Eren Beleth, then.
Arwen gives in to his embrace and holds him.
Yurik Malethnin Ada.
Exterior Rivendell night. A group of elves move out of Rivendell, each carrying a lantern. Arwen walks among them, silent and stoic. Elrond stands on a balcony watching them go. Arwen turns a final sad glance to him. Elrond remains impassive and resigned. Exterior Middle-earth night. The line of elves with their lanterns stretches across the bridge before Rivendell, standing gravely empty behind them. Elrond remains on his balcony, watching the entourage leave. The voice of Galadriel is heard. Galadriel speaking across the distance.
Yamar prestarian, Hanmathan nenen, Hanmathan neche, Hadnon nastan ned gwylith. The world has changed. I feel it in the water. I feel it in the earth. I smell it in the air.
Elrond standing at his window, he continues watching the entourage leave.
The power of the enemy is growing. Sauron will use his puppet Saruman.
Saruman in the Palantir chamber at Orthanc, his hand held over the Palantir. Within the ball swirls the fiery eye of Sauron.
To destroy the people of Rohan.
Saruman's Uruk-hai army marches across Isengard towards Rohan. The army forms a black line that stretches back for miles. Thousands of spears rise high over the heads of the army.
Isengard has been unleashed.
The Eye of Sauron high atop the tower of Barad-dûr.
The Eye of Sauron now turns to Gondor.
High overhead, Ariel of Osgiliath, its east and west portions of the city split by the river Anduin.
The lost of the free kingdom of men.
A shadow spreads over Osgiliath.
His war on this country will come swiftly.
The Eye of Sauron high atop the tower of Barad-dûr, looking in the direction of Osgiliath and Gondor.
He senses the ring is close.
Frodo and Sam, blindfolded, are being pushed along by the Gondorian Rangers, led by Faramir.
The strength of the ring bearer is failing.
Elrond at his window, anger and frustration welling up within him as he listens to Galadriel.
In his heart, Frodo begins to understand. The quest will claim his life. You know this.
Elrond stands at his window.
You have foreseen it. It is the risk we all took.
Fade to black. The ring spins through the darkness.
In the gathering dark, the will of the ring grows strong.
Exterior forest of Ithilien day. The Gondorian Rangers continue prodding Frodo and Sam along.
It works hard now to find its way back into the hands of men who are so easily seduced by its power.
Faramir leading the band of Rangers.
The young captain of Gondor has but to extend his hand, take the ring for his own, and the world will fall.
The waterfall in Ithilien, which conceals the hideout of the Rangers, Henneth Annûn. Interior Henneth Annûn day. The men pass Frodo and Sam to one another within the hideout to imprison them.
It is close now.
Intercut Galadriel's eyes watching across the distance.
So close to achieving its goal.
The Eye of Sauron on Barad-dûr.
For Sauron will have domain of all life on this earth.
Pull back to reveal the tower deep within Mordor. Nazgul fly around the tower on fell beasts, guarding it from invaders. Close on Galadriel's eyes with their deep pools of wisdom.
Even unto ending the world, the time of the elves is over.
Elrond rocks up to the painting of Isildur, defeating Sauron with the broken blade of Narsil. Close on the painting, panning from the image of Sauron to that of Isildur.
Do we leave Middle-earth to its fate? Do we let them stand alone?
Elrond, his face etched with frustration and indecision. Interior Henneth Annûn day. A map of Middle-earth is unrolled onto a table. Faramir and Madril poring over the map.
What news?
Our scouts report Saruman has attacked Rohan.
The map as Madril indicates Rohan and Helm's Deep.
Theoden's people have fled to Helm's Deep, but we must look to our own borders.
Madril moves his finger from Helm's Deep to the borders of Mordor, where he traces from the Black Gate to Osgiliath.
Faramir, orcs are on the move. Sauron is marshalling his army. Easterlings and Southrons are passing through the Black Gate.
How many?
Some thousands. More come every day.
Who's covering the river to the north?
The map is centered on Gondor. Madril points out Osgiliath.
We pulled 500 men at Osgiliath, but if the city is attacked, we won't hold it.
Faramir considers Madril's words carefully. The map shows Isengard.
Saruman attacks from Isengard.
Faramir moves his finger from Isengard to Mordor.
Sauron for Mordor.
Pull back to reveal the Isengard, Gondor, and Mordor on the map.
The fight will come from the men on both fronts. Gondor is weak. Sauron will strike us soon, and he will strike hard.
The map closes in on Osgiliath.
He knows we do not have the strength to repel him.
Interior Hennethanoon later. Frodo's blindfold is ripped off him. Frodo and Sam stand in the midst of the Gondorian Rangers, all walking to and fro in their duties. Faramir enters and addresses Frodo and Sam.
My men tell me that you are orc spies.
Spies? No, wait just a minute.
Well, if you are not spies, then who are you?
Sam looks over to Frodo, who remains silent and unmoving. Faramir sits to address them.
Speak.
Frodo and Sam stay silent for a moment. Finally, Frodo speaks.
We are hobbits of the Shire. Frodo Baggins is my name, and this is Samwise Gamgee.
Your bodyguard.
His gardener.
And where is your skulking friend?
Frodo looks suddenly nervous, his eyes widening.
That gangrel creature. He had an ill-favored look.
Frodo shakes his head.
There was no other.
Sam looks uncomfortable, as if caught in a lie. Faramir eyes them suspiciously.
We set out from Rivendell with 7 companions.
Faramir is suddenly very interested.
When we lost in Moria, 2 are my kin, a dwarf there was also, and an elf, and 2 men, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, and Boromir of Gondor.
Faramir's expression changes to that of reserved surprise.
You're a friend of Boromir?
Yes, for my part.
Faramir turns away from the hobbits for a moment and then back to address them.
It would grieve you then to learn that he was dead.
Frodo's mouth drops, shocked.
Dead? How? When?
As one of his companions, I'd hoped you would tell me.
If something has happened to Boromir, we would have you tell us.
His horn washed up on the riverbank about 6 days past. It was cloven in 2. But more than this, I know it in my heart. He was my brother.
Frodo stands speechless at the revelation. Faramir stands alone on a riverbank. Faramir walks through the water to an elven boat, floating down the river. Close on the elven boat, Boromir lies in state. Faramir stands in shock at the image as the boat passes him by. Interior Hennethanoon Day. Faramir sits alone, deep in thought. Close on his hands, he holds Boromir's horn, cloven in 2. Voices cry out, Boromir, Boromir. Cut to exterior Osgiliath Day. Hundreds of Gondorians crowd the streets of the city, crying Boromir's name. Boromir plants a flag in one of the turrets and draws his sword in salute.
This city was once the jewel of our kingdom, a place of light and beauty and music, and so it shall be once more.
The people cheer in response.
Let the armies of Mordor know this. Never again will the land of my people fall into enemy hands.
The people cheer again.
The city of Osgiliath has been reclaimed for Gondor.
Boromir raises his sword in triumph over the city. The people respond to him with cheers and jubilation. Faramir makes his way through the crowds to Boromir. They embrace.
Good speech. Nice and short.
Leaves more time for drinking.
The brothers laugh. Boromir addresses the people around him.
Break out the ale. These men are thirsty.
The men cheer in agreement. Boromir fills 2 tankards of ale. He hands one to Faramir and they toast.
Remember today, little brother. Today, life is good.
They drink. Faramir's gaze drifts beyond Boromir. His expression drops.
What?
He's here.
Boromir turns. Angelon, Lord Denethor, their father, and the steward of Gondor, makes his way through the crowd, happily greeting the people. Boromir turns away in frustration.
One moment of peace. Can he not give us that?
Where is he? Where is Gondor's finest? Where is my firstborn?
Boromir musters a smile and then turns to greet Denethor.
Father.
Faramir drops back as if staying out of the way. Boromir embraces Denethor.
They say you vanquished the enemy almost single-handedly.
They exaggerate. The victory belongs to Faramir also.
Faramir smiles and steps forward. Denethor scowls.
But for Faramir, the city would still be standing. Were it not you? Were you not entrusted to protect it?
I would have done, but our numbers were too few.
Oh, too few. You let the enemy walk in and take it on a whim.
Faramir is shattered, hurt by his father's condescension. Denethor steps toward him for the kill.
Always you cast a poor reflection on me.
That is not my intent.
You give him no credit, and yet he tries to do your will.
Boromir storms away. Denethor leaves Faramir and follows him.
He loves you, father.
Do not trouble me with Faramir. I know his uses, and they are few.
Boromir turns away, unbelieving a father would say such things of a son.
We have more urgent things to speak of. Elrond of Rivendell has called a meeting. He will not say why, but I have guessed its purpose. It's rumored that the weapon of the enemy has been found.
Boromir's mouth drops in surprise and disbelief.
The One Ring? Isildur's bane.
It has fallen into the hands of the elves. Everyone will try to claim it. Men, dwarves, wizards. We cannot let that happen. This thing must come to Gondor.
Gondor?
It's dangerous, I know. Ever the ring will seek to corrupt the hearts of lesser men. But you are strong, and our need is great. It is our blood which is being spilled, our people who are dying. Sauron is biding his time. He is massing fresh armies. He will return. And when he does, we will be powerless to stop him. You must go. Bring me back this mighty gift.
Boromir pulls away from Denethor and proceeds back out into Osgiliath.
No, my place is here with my people, not in Rivendell.
Denethor chases Boromir out.
Would you deny your own father?
Faramir steps forward.
Is there a need to go to Rivendell? Send me in his stead.
Denethor looks at Faramir with a cruel sneer.
You? Oh, I see. A chance for Faramir, captain of Gondor, to show his quality. I think not.
Faramir's confident expression drops.
I trust this mission only to your brother, the one who will not fail me.
Denethor turns to Boromir, who stands against the wall looking strangely angered and defeated. Cut to exterior Osgiliath Day. Boromir sits ready atop his steed, looking as he did when we first saw him ride into Rivendell. He glances upward. Angle on a white flag, emblazoned with the image of a tree, the standard of the Steward of Gondor flies high over Osgiliath. Boromir turns his gaze to Faramir, who looks up at his brother.
Remember today, little brother.
Faramir smiles and nods. Boromir smiles in return and trots his horse out of Osgiliath. Cut to interior Henethanoon night. Faramir sits alone, staring into nothing, lost in his memories. Madril approaches behind him.
Captain Faramir.
Madril leans into Faramir's ear.
We found the third one.
Interior Henethanoon night. Angelon, Frodo, and Sam sleep. Frodo's eyes slowly open as footsteps approach. He looks up at figures before him. Faramir stands before him with two other Gondorian rangers.
You must come with me, now.
Frodo silently rises and follows them. Exterior Henethanoon night. The waterfall concealing their location flows over the cliff, leaving space on the sides. Faramir inches toward the edge. Faramir gestures to Frodo.
Down there.
Frodo carefully walks to the edge and looks down. Faramir eyes him watchfully. Far below, Gollum jumps into the pool at the base of the waterfall. Frodo's eyes open wide as if caught in his lie.
To enter the forbidden pool bears the penalty of death.
Frodo looks at Faramir with fear. Faramir gestures to the sides of the waterfall. Archers stationed on both sides of the pool lean in and draw their bows. Frodo looks back to Gollum.
They wait for my command.
Far below, Gollum emerges from the pool with a fish in his teeth and sits on a rock. Faramir still calmly watches Frodo's reactions.
Shall I shoot?
Frodo is racked with indecision. Gollum sits on the rock with his fish, completely oblivious that his life may be in mortal danger. Faramir gives a signal to the archers. They raise their bows. Frodo continues watching Gollum, indecision etched across his face. Gollum attempts to eat the fish, but it wriggles about in his grasp. He regains control of the fish and whacks it repeatedly on the rock. Faramir raises his hand to give the signal to fire.
Wait.
Faramir stops. He continues looking at Frodo expectantly.
This creature is bound to me, and I to him.
Faramir lowers his hand and responds, knowing Gollum is connected to Frodo.
He is our guide. Please, let me go down to him.
Faramir nods. Frodo runs off. Exterior, the forbidden pool night. Gollum tears at the fish. Frodo appears from behind him.
Smeagol.
Gollum continues eating, not responding to Frodo's call.
Master is here.
Gollum turns to Frodo hesitantly.
Come, Smeagol. Trust Master. Come.
Gollum doesn't move. He looks at Frodo distrustfully.
We must go now.
Smeagol, you must trust Master. Follow me. Come on, come.
Gollum finally responds to Frodo. He puts the fish between his teeth and follows warily after Frodo.
Come, Smeagol. Nice, Smeagol. That's it. Come on.
Frodo stops. Gollum's eyes dart around fearfully. Suddenly, a Gondorian ranger grabs Gollum by the neck, lifting him off the ground. Instantly, several others descend on him, quickly overpowering him. Gollum wails in anguish.
Don't hurt him. Smeagol, don't struggle. Smeagol, listen to me.
Master!
A black cloth is draped over Gollum's head. The rangers pack him back into Henneth Annwn. Frodo looks up to Faramir, speechless. Interior Henneth Annwn night. Gollum is slung against a wall of the cave. He wails in agony. Faramir's men throw Gollum to the ground, beating and kicking him. Gollum is helpless against their strength. Faramir watches out into the night. Finally, he turns to them.
That's enough.
The men throw Gollum to the ground. He scrambles into a corner. Faramir approaches him.
Where are you leading them?
Gollum cowers away from him, whimpering.
Answer me!
Gollum continues sobbing. Suddenly, his hand starts stroking his shoulder, comfortingly.
Regal. Right. Oh, wow. Right as a Christ, Regal.
Faramir looks upon Gollum, confused.
Oh, my goodness. Master Tristan. Of course.
Smeagol sobs again.
I told you he was Tristan. I told you he was face. But Master's our friend. Our friend. Master betrayed us. No, it's business. Leave us alone.
Gollum hits his fist against the wall.
Filthy inhabitants, they stole it from us. No.
Angel and Faramir suddenly interested.
What do they steal?
Gollum turns to Faramir with a fearsome expression. He bares his teeth and growls. Interior Henneth Annwn night. Sam and Frodo sit alone in a storage area.
We have to get out of here. You go. Go now.
Frodo looks to Sam warily. Sam crawls over to him.
You can do it. Use the ring, Mr. Frodo. Just this once. Put it on. Disappear.
Frodo shakes his head.
I can't. You were right, Sam. You tried to tell me, but I'm sorry. The ring's taking me, Sam. If I put it on, he'll find me. He'll see.
Mr. Frodo.
Sam suddenly looks up. Faramir enters and draws his sword. The hobbits jump up and stand before him.
So this is the answer to all the riddles. Here in the wild, I have you, two of my halflings, a host of men at my call.
Faramir backs Frodo up against a wall, his sword at Frodo's neck.
The ring of power within my grasp.
Faramir lifts the ring from Frodo's tunic with the tip of his sword. Frodo looks at Faramir with fear.
A chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality.
The ring remains on Frodo's chest at the tip of Faramir's sword. The hum of the ring grows louder. Frodo reacts to the ring's call to Faramir. Suddenly, Frodo breaks from his trance and throws Faramir's sword from him.
No!
Frodo runs into a corner and cowers there with the ring. Faramir watches Frodo's reaction with surprise. Sam reels on Faramir.
Stop it! Leave him alone! Don't you understand? He's got to destroy it. That's where we're going. Into Mordor. To the Mountain of Fire.
Faramir, unmoving, continues to stare at Frodo. Madril enters behind him, snapping him out of the trance.
Osgiliath is under attack. They call for reinforcements.
Please, it's such a burden. Will you not help him?
Captain.
Prepare to leave.
Faramir turns back to Sam and Frodo, expressionless.
The ring shall go to Gondor.
Sam's face turns to fear and hopelessness. Exterior plains of Rohan day. Aragorn rides atop Brago. He stops on a ridge overlooking the plains. Aragorn looks across the plains, worried. Still far off in the distance, the massive Uruk-hai army marches and files towards Helm's Deep. The black lines of troops stretches beyond eyesight. Aragorn, speechless and scared, pulls Brago back and gallops as fast as he can handle to Helm's Deep. Exterior Helm's Deep overlook day. Aragorn and Brago reach the hillock overlooking the wide plains before Helm's Deep, nestled in the mountain. Aragorn smiles and pats Brago.
Maikanem Brago, Maluni.
Exterior Helm's Deep day. Aragorn gallops up the walk into Helm's Deep. Helm's Deep courtyard. Aragorn rides past the people. They are amazed to see him alive. A soldier takes charge of Brago. Aragorn dismounts. Gimli fights his way through the crowd.
Where is he? Where is he? Get out of the way. I'm gonna kill him.
Gimli looks upon Aragorn in amazement. He smiles broadly.
You are the luckiest, the canniest, and the most reckless man I've ever known.
Gimli embraces Aragorn. Aragorn accepts his friend's affection.
Gimli, where is the king?
Gimli nods to the hall. Interior Helm's Deep hall day. As Aragorn walks through the people, he meets Legolas, who blocks his path. Legolas looks at him, amused. They smile. Legolas gives Aragorn a once-over and frowns.
You look terrible.
Aragorn laughs. Eowyn tends to one of the people. She turns and is overjoyed to see Aragorn returned. She moves to him but pauses. Legolas hands Aragorn a necklace. Aragorn opens his hand to reveal the Evenstar has been returned to him. Eowyn's smile fades. Aragorn looks at Legolas in reverent happiness. He nods with appreciation.
Hanotle.
Eowyn continues watching, now torn within. She fights back tears. Interior Helm's Deep hall day. Theoden sits on his throne with Gimli at his side. The door sounds and they turn to it. Aragorn throws open the doors and stands before them. Later, Theoden taking in Aragorn's story.
A great host, you say?
All Isengard is emptied.
How many?
10,000 strong at least.
Theoden turns to Aragorn, incredulous.
10,000?
It is an army bred for a single purpose, to destroy the world of men.
Theoden attempts to fathom Aragorn's bombshell. He shows real fear. Aragorn grimly completes the bad news.
They will be here by nightfall.
Theoden turns away slowly, considering. Finally, he walks resolutely from the hall.
Let them come.
Exterior Helm's Deep battlements stay. Theoden and Gamling walk down the stairs, followed by Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli.
I want every man and strong lad able to bear arms to be ready for battle by nightfall.
He dismisses Gamling. He, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli continue on to stand just outside the main gate. Theoden stands outside the gate on the stone pathway leading into Helm's Deep. He addresses his plan.
We will cover the causeway and the gate from above. No army has ever breached the deeping wall or set foot inside the Hornburg.
Gimli stands bored against the gate.
This is no rambling, mindless orcs.
Theoden turns to Gimli, almost surprised to hear from him.
These are Uruk-hai. Their armor is thick and their shields broad.
Theoden stands tall before Gimli.
I have fought many wars, Master Dwarf. I know how to defend my own keep.
Theoden walks back into the keep. Aragorn and Legolas walk past Gimli, who appears to have been put off. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements day. Theoden leads Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli across the battlements of Helm's Deep, overlooking the expansive plains.
They will break upon this fortress like water on rock. Saruman's hordes will pillage and burn. We've seen it before. Crops can be resown, homes rebuilt. Within these walls, we will outlast them.
Aragorn follows Theoden closely.
They do not come to destroy Rohan's crops or villages. They come to destroy its people, down to the last child.
Theoden turns quickly to Aragorn and draws him close.
What would you have me do? Look at my men. The courage hangs by a thread.
Aragorn looks away, ashamed.
If this is to be our end, then I would have them make such an end as to be worthy of remembrance.
Theoden walks away. Aragorn pleads with Theoden.
Send out riders, my lord. You must call for aid.
Theoden turns back to Aragorn, drawing close again.
And who will come? Elves? Dwarves? We are not so lucky in our friends as you. The old alliances are dead.
Gondor will answer.
Gondor? Where was Gondor when the Westfold fell? Where was Gondor when our enemies closed in around us? Where was Gondor?
Theoden recollects himself. He looks into Aragorn's eyes.
No, my lord Aragorn. We are alone.
Theoden turns away again. Aragorn looks after him, nodding. Theoden walks up the steps to the hall, followed closely by Gamling.
Get the women and children into the caves.
We need more time to lay provisions.
There is no time. War is upon us.
Theoden and staff enter into the hall. High overhead, a flock of crows gathers. Exterior Fangorn Forest day. Treebeard continues his walk through Fangorn. Merry and Pippin rest in his branches, carried along by their fates.
The Ents have not troubled with the wars of men and wizards for a very long time.
Treebeard enters an expansive clearing and stops.
But now something is about to happen that has not happened for an age. Entmoot.
What's that?
It is a gathering.
A gathering of what?
A noise sounds from behind them. Merry turns to look behind Treebeard. Ents begin emerging from the forest and walking toward Treebeard. Many Ents walk to the middle of the gathering where Treebeard awaits.
Beech, oak, chestnut, ash. Good. 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 Many have come.
The Ents all stop near Treebeard. Merry and Pippin look about in awe.
Now we must decide if the Ents will go to war.
Merry and Pippin look to Treebeard in fear and anticipation. Exterior Helm's Deep courtyard day. In a mass organized movement, the people gather their belongings and trudge together into hiding. Soldiers assist the elderly and infirm in getting themselves into the caves. Aragorn works his way through the throng and explains the plan to Legolas.
We'll place the reserves along the wall. They can support the archers from above the gate.
Aragorn, you must rest. You're no use to us half alive.
Aragorn pays Legolas no mind. A voice breaks across the throngs. Aragorn looks in its direction.
Aragorn! Aragorn!
Eowyn runs through the crowds towards him. She looks at him angrily.
I'm to be sent with the women into the caves.
That is an honorable charge.
To mind the children, to find food and bedding until the men return? What renown is there in that?
Aragorn grasps her hands.
My lady, a time may come for valor without renown. Who then will your people look to in the last defense?
Let me stand at your side.
It is not in my power to command it.
Aragorn turns away from her. She looks after him unmoved. He turns.
You do not command the others to stay. They fight beside you because they would not be parted from you, because they love you.
Aragorn stands before her, looking at her silently. She averts her gaze.
I'm sorry.
She pushes past him and follows the people into the caves. Interior Helm's Deep Caves, night. Women and children comfort each other as they trudge their way into the caves. They regard their new home with fear and doubt. Eowyn studies her task grimly. The expansiveness of the caves holds thousands of Rohirrim. The caves seem to go on forever. Tearful goodbyes from wives, mothers, young siblings, and children, as even old men and boys are drafted into service and taken away from their families to fight. Swords are passed out to the miserable army. Aragorn examines one of the swords. He tosses it away discouraged.
Farmers, farriers, stable boys, these are no soldiers.
Must have seen too many winters.
What's with you?
Aragorn nods miserably. The new soldiers continue to prepare.
Look at them. They're frightened. I can see in their eyes.
Everyone around them turns to look at Legolas. He turns away angrily.
Boy, you're in. You're coming.
Aragorn looks at Legolas with as much confidence as he can muster.
Sibra Fulhain, Amar Nepal, Endoras.
Aragorn. Many ang nando. You all three. Not a dead time.
Aragorn explodes at Legolas.
Then I shall die as one of them.
Their gaze locks for a moment. Aragorn breaks and walks away. Legolas makes to follow him. Gimli puts a hand on his arm.
Let him go, lad. Let him be.
Exterior Helm's Deep night. Soldiers stand at the battlements. The plains before the deep are quiet, like the calm before a storm. Interior King's Chamber, Helm's Deep night. Gamling approaches King Theoden.
Every villager able to wield a sword has been sent to the armory.
Theoden stands silently, unarmed and armorless.
My lord.
Who am I, Gamling?
You are a king, sire.
And do you trust your king?
Gamling stands at Theoden's side with his armor, unmoving.
Your men, my lord, will follow you to whatever end.
Slowly, Gamling wraps the armor around Theoden.
To whatever end.
Gamling attaches Theoden's armor, piece by piece. Lances held high like an enormous porcupine, the Uruk-hai army continues its steady march across the plains of Rohan to Helm's Deep.
Where is the horse and the rider? Where is the horn that was blowing?
A soldier sharpens a sword on a whetstone. Old men collect spears on their way to fight.
They have passed like rain on the mountains.
An oversized helmet is placed on the head of a boy.
Like wind in the meadow.
An axe is handed to a frightened boy who takes it with trepidation.
The days have gone down in the west.
The Uruk-hai army marches ever closer.
Beyond the hills.
A boy dressed in full chainmail, too large for him, takes a shield and moves to fight.
Into shadow.
The Uruk-hai army closes in on Helm's Deep and begins to take their positions. Theoden in his hall, still standing still as Gamling adjusts his armor.
How did it come to this?
Gamling stands to the side of Theoden in the empty room. They are ready. Exterior Fangorn Forest, Entmoot, night. High, wide aerial over the treetops to the location of the Entmoot. The Ents move and groan. Pippin rests against a root. Merry paces impatiently.
It's been going for hours.
Pippin stands and walks over to him.
They must have decided something by now.
Treebeard turns to them and shakes his head.
Decided? No.
Slowly, Treebeard turns to the hobbits.
We only just finished saying good morning.
Treebeard turns back to the Entmoot. Merry looks on in frustration.
But it's nighttime already. You can't take forever.
Treebeard slowly turns to Marie again.
Don't be hasty.
But we're running out of time.
Treebeard seems to ignore him and turns back to the Entmoot. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements night. Soldiers move to and fro, preparing Helm's Deep for the imminent attack. Aragorn sits on the steps in the hall, pondering the inevitable. He glances across the steps. A boy stands at the edge of the steps, nervously holding a sword. He looks at Aragorn briefly and averts his gaze.
Give me your sword.
The boy whips around, looking at Aragorn. Slowly he walks over to Aragorn and hands over his sword. Aragorn takes it.
What is your name?
Haleth, son of Hama, my lord.
Aragorn reacts to the name.
The men are saying that we will not live out the night. They say that it is hopeless.
Wordlessly, Aragorn stands and eyeballs the sword. He gives it a few swings and holds it before him. He looks at Haleth.
This is a good sword.
Aragorn hands the sword back to Haleth, who takes it gingerly.
Hala, son of Aman.
Aragorn leans down to him.
There is always hope.
Interior Armory, Helm's Deep, night. Series of images. Aragorn quickly dons his chainmail, leather vest, and elven dagger. Someone hands Aragorn his sword. Aragorn looks up. Legolas stands before Aragorn, Aragorn's sword in hand. Aragorn takes it and nods and thanks.
We have trusted you this far. You have not led us astray. Forgive me. I was wrong to despair.
Aragorn shakes his head.
There is nothing to forgive, Legolas.
They smile at each other, their friendship renewed. Gimli wrestles with a shirt of chainmail.
We had time. I'd get this adjusted.
He gets the shirt on and drops the bundle to the floor. It lands in a heap. Aragorn and Legolas smile. Gimli is unfazed.
It's a little tight across the chest.
Aragorn and Legolas nod in feigned agreement. A horn sounds from outside. Legolas turns in curiosity.
There's no orc horn.
Legolas and Aragorn run out of the armory. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements night. The guards look over the edge of the battlements.
Send for the king.
Guard 2 nods and runs off.
Open the gate!
Order passes down the wall. An army of Lothlorien elven archers march up the causeway into the Hornburg. The soldiers look upon them in wonder and excitement. Theoden walks down the steps of the hall. His mouth drops open in surprise. Haldir leads the elves to Theoden. He bows with respect.
How is this possible?
I bring word from Elrond of Rivendell. An alliance once existed between elves and men. Long ago we fought and died together.
Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli appear at the head of the stairs. Haldir looks up to them and smiles.
We come to honor that allegiance.
Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli descend the steps to greet Haldir.
May I go on with Haldir?
Haldir extends his hand in the traditional elvish welcome. Aragorn begins to, but then grabs Haldir in a huge embrace. Haldir is momentarily stunned, but hugs back lightly.
You are most welcome.
Legolas and Haldir clasp each other on the shoulder in greeting. The army of elves performs a left face and stands before Theoden for his review. Haldir bows before him.
We are proud to fight alongside men once more.
Exterior Helm's Deep battlements night. The men and elves stand ready and watchful on the battlements of Helm's Deep. Every inch of space overlooking the sides of the wall is covered. Across the plains before Helm's Deep, an enormous army lit by torches approaches the heavily manned battlements. Legolas watches before a couplement of archers. The top of a helmet is just visible over the edge of the wall.
You could have picked a better spot.
Legolas smirks. Aragorn approaches and stands beside them.
Well, lad, whatever you luck and live by, let's hope it lasts the night.
Lightning flashes, thunder rolls. As the lightning illuminates the night, it reveals the sheer size of the sea of approaching Uruk-hai. Legolas's eyes grow wide at the very sight.
Your friends await you, Aragorn.
Let's hope that lasts the night.
The steady approach of the Uruk-hai grows louder. Theoden stands ready with his men. Lightning peals across the sky, accompanied by more thunder. Theoden looks up as it begins to rain. The men on the battlements are unmoved by the sudden downpour. The sea of spears grows ever closer. An orc commander stands atop a rock, urging the sea of Uruk-hai onward. The Uruk-hai move ever closer to the wall of Helm's Deep. Aragorn moves through the ranks of the elven archers.
At intrusion dano a Falin's hands, an Ubenstana a Falala.
The Uruk-hai commander roars at his troops. They stop their march. The two armies stand still opposite each other, each waiting for the other. Aragorn moves to the edge of the battlement. The Uruk-hai stand impatiently, waiting for their orders. Gimli jumps up and strains to see.
What's happening out there?
Shall I describe it to you?
He looks at Gimli with a grin.
Or would you like me to find you a box?
Gimli laughs. The Uruk-hai commander roars. The entire Uruk-hai army begins pounding their spears on the ground. The men and elves draw their swords and ready their arrows. Aldor, an old man standing ready with his bow, loses his grip. The arrow sails to the front line of Uruk-hai and hits his mark.
Darthol.
The Uruk-hai groans and collapses to the ground, dead. The commander roars and thrusts his sword forward. The Uruk-hai roar in response and run toward the battlements. Theoden regards the scene grimly.
So it begins.
The front line of Uruk-hai rush toward the wall. Aragorn shouts orders to the archers.
Tengo halat.
As one, the archers knock their arrows and stand ready to fire. Legolas speaks to Haldir.
Hey, we have the Nalak, a new rank.
Aragorn brings his arm down.
Laithendo Filane.
The archers release their arrows and they find their marks. With every Uruk-hai that falls, others replace him. Gimli yells to Legolas.
Did they hit anything?
Theoden calmly speaks to Gamling.
Give them a volley.
Fire!
The order is passed to the men and the arrows fly. Many more Uruk-hai are felled, but the advance continues. Gimli impatiently awaits his own opportunity to participate, jumping at the battlements, wishing he could see.
Send them to me, come on!
The Uruk-hai continue advancing on Helm's Deep. Volley after volley of arrows are launched into the fray, felling the front line over and over, but the advance cannot be halted. Uruk-hai launch arrows from crossbows into the alliance. Elves and men fall to their doom among the approaching throng. The Uruk-hai produce ladders and mount them against the wall. Aragorn looks down to this new peril.
Pendret.
Gimli jumps with glee.
Good.
Ladders with Uruk-hai riders are raised against the wall.
Swords. Swords.
The elves draw their swords and prepare for close combat. The first Uruk-hai comes over the wall, and Gimli is the first to make contact. Quick series of cuts, the Uruk-hai begin pouring over the wall. The men and elves battle against them. Gimli and Legolas take stock of each other.
Legolas, that's 2 already!
I'm on 17.
I'll have no point of your outscoring me.
Gimli quickly turns and fells another Uruk-hai climbing over the wall. Legolas fires more arrows at the invaders.
19.
Quick series of cuts, the battle rages on. More and more siege ladders are raised against Helm's Deep. More and more Uruk-hai flood in. Exterior Entmoot night. Treebeard turns from the Ents. Pippin paces. He looks up and gestures to Merry.
Merry.
Merry responds, and they meet up with Treebeard.
We have just agreed.
Merry and Pippin wait with rapt anticipation. Treebeard bows his head and closes his eyes. Merry tilts his head in query.
Yes?
Treebeard shakes himself and looks at the hobbits.
I have told your names to the Entmoot, and we have agreed. You are not orcs.
Treebeard gives him a smile. Pippin and Merry stand profoundly still. Merry appears confused. Pippin nods.
Well, that's good news.
And what about Saruman? Have you come to a decision about him?
Treebeard comes back up to his full height and waves his hand.
Now don't be hasty, Master Meridoc.
Hasty? Our friends are out there. They need our help. They cannot fight this war on their own.
War? Yes, it affects us all. Tree, root, and twig. But you must understand, young hobbit, it takes a long time to say anything in Old Entish, and we never say anything unless it is worth taking a long time to say.
Merry and Pippin look at each other with frustrated impatience. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements night. The massive Uruk-hai army continues advancing toward the Helm's Deep battlements. Pan across the field of battle too, a large team of Uruk-hai shield themselves like a turtle and make their way up the causeway to the main gate. Arrows bounce off the shields. Aragorn notices the peril on the causeway. He runs through the archers shouting orders.
Nafinas?
The elvish archers turn and fire at the Uruk-hai on the causeway. The Uruk-hai on the sides of the turtle formation fall, but the turtle keeps advancing. Theoden observes the battle.
Is this it? Is this all you can conjure, Saruman?
2 Uruk-hai carry a spiked ball toward the sluice gate of Helm's Deep. They place it within. 2 more follow and place a second spiked ball within. The Uruk-hai make a clear path for another Uruk-hai, armed with a sparkling torch, to make a clear one for the sluice gate. Aragorn sees the approaching Uruk-hai. He yells to Legolas.
Tongohada, Legolas?
Legolas fires several arrows at the Uruk-hai, but he continues to run. Aragorn desperately points to the berserker.
Dagohan, Dagohan.
The Uruk reaches the spiked balls. A massive explosion destroys an entire section of the wall, throwing men and Uruks in its wake. Theoden turns to the explosion, for the first time feeling the fear of the battle. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are all thrown to the ground from the explosion. Massive chunks of the wall come down and flatten portions of the Uruk-hai army. Water flows out of the breach. Uruk-hai flow in. Theoden turns from the explosion to the turtle on the causeway. The turtle, Uruks, still falling from the sides, has slowly made its way to the gate. The front shields of the turtle peel back to reveal a battering ram buried within.
Brace the gate!
Interior Helm's Deep main gate night, men force themselves against the gate, trying to hold it. Intercut with the Uruk-hai pound the ram into the gate. The force of the hit throws the men back away from the gate. They quickly recover. Above the gate, soldiers throw down stones and spears in an attempt to disrupt the ram. The Uruk-hai rush through the destroyed section of the deeping wall. Aragorn slowly comes to his feet. Gimli, still atop the wall, sees Aragorn's peril.
Aragorn!
Gimli jumps off the wall and lands in the sea of Uruk-hai. He fights them off, but is soon overpowered.
Gimli.
Aragorn commands the elves behind him.
Haroin Thelin.
The volley of arrows fells many Uruk-hai, but many more follow in their wake. Aragorn holds his sword at the ready.
Hario.
The elves charge the approaching Uruk-hai. When contact is made, ground is neither lost nor gained. Aragorn and the elves valiantly battle the Uruk-hai with much success. Aragorn reaches below the surface of the water and pulls Gimli to the surface. He coughs and sputters. Aragorn drags him to temporary safety. The elves and Uruk-hai continue their battle at the gap in the deeping wall. Exterior Entmoot night, Treebeard stands over the hobbits, the other Ents behind him.
The Ents cannot hold back the storm. We must weather such things as we have always done.
How can that be your decision?
This is not our war.
But you're part of this world.
Treebeard stands up uncomfortably. Merry looks to the other Ents.
Aren't you?
The Ents look at each other, surprised at this outburst.
You must help, please. You must do something.
You are simply young and brave, Master Merry. But your part in this tale is over. Go back to your home.
Merry stands speechless, angry, frustrated. Later, Merry is putting on his jacket. Pippin approaches him slowly.
Maybe Treebeard's right. We don't belong here, Merry. It's too big for us. What can we do in the end? We've got the Shire. Maybe we should go home.
Fires of Isengard will spread, and the woods of Tuckbroll and Buckland will burn. And
Merry turns to Pippin.
And all that was once green and good in this world will be gone.
Merry looks into Pippin's eyes intently.
There won't be a Shire, Pippin.
Pippin stands silently, taking this in. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements night. The endless sea of Uruk-hai swarm into Helm's Deep. The defenders of the keep work fiercely to hold them back. Theoden stands at his tower, intensely observing every facet of the battle. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli fight tirelessly against the onslaught. Aragorn looks up as a voice cuts across the battle.
Aragorn! Fall back to the keep! Get your men out of there!
Wide pan from the upper battlements to the field of battle. Aragorn signals the fighters.
To the keep. Pull back to the keep.
Aragorn looks around for anyone who may not have heard. He glances up to the wall.
Haldir.
Haldir turns to him.
To the keep.
Haldir nods and starts fighting his way down. Legolas and another elf carry Gimli off the field, kicking and struggling.
What are you doing? What are you stopping for?
Haldir gives orders to his retreating detachment.
Nabarad.
He turns and starts to retreat, but he is stopped by an Uruk-hai who leaps in front of him. He makes short work of this one, but another comes from behind him and stabs him in the arm. Haldir staggers. He kills the offending Uruk. He looks down to his arm in total disbelief. He whirls around, lost to his purpose. Behind him, an Uruk emerges and brings his sword down on Haldir's head. Haldir freezes with a shocked look on his face. Aragorn, on the ground, sees Haldir falling. Haldir falls to his knees, his world spinning around him. Aragorn fights his way up the steps. Haldir looks about him. The dead bodies of his kinsmen lie all around him. He falls to the ground just as Aragorn catches him. His head falls into Aragorn's arm, eyes lifeless and unseeing. Aragorn gives Haldir a silent farewell, seeing a group of approaching Uruk-hai. Like a madman, Aragorn leaps aboard the nearest ladder and rides it into the sea of Uruk-hai below. Exterior Helm's Deep gate night. The gate smashes under the onslaught of the battering ram. A soldier is impaled on the ram's jagged end. The soldiers and Uruks exchange arrow fire. Theoden draws his sword.
To the gate! Draw your swords!
They depart for battle. Aragorn fights against the Uruk-hai on the ground and makes his way up a steep outside stairway into the keep. Interior Helm's Deep gate night. Theoden and his soldiers work desperately to hold the gate against impossible odds. An Uruk starts to get the better of Gamling, but Theoden rescues him. Seizing this advantage, another Uruk stabs Theoden in the shoulder with his lance. Wounded but undeterred, Theoden returns the blow, but more lethally. He falls into Gamling's arms. Gamling quickly pulls him out of the area. Gamling?
Make way for the king!
The fighting continues at the gate. Gamling carries Theoden away from the battle and rests him against the wall.
We cannot hold much longer.
The gate begins to give way under the strength of the Uruk-hai. The men work fiercely to hold it. Theoden looks momentarily discouraged until Aragorn runs through and begins hacking at the Uruk-hai.
Hold them!
How long do you need?
Theoden takes his sword in hand.
As long as you can give me.
Aragorn nods and looks around.
Gimli.
Aragorn slips out a side exit as the men rush the gate to hold it. Exterior Helm's Deep gate night. More Uruks run at the gate. A door opens on the side of a tower near the gate. Aragorn peeps out. Seeing no immediate danger, he and Gimli creep out and sidle along the outside of the wall. Aragorn carefully peeps around the side of the tower. A horde of Uruk-hai crowd the gate, trying to force their way in. Aragorn sidles back up against the wall. Gimli looks up at him.
Ah, come on, we can take them.
Aragorn looks at Gimli sidelong with a smirk.
It's a long way.
Gimli takes a peek. He steps back and looks into the distance, embarrassed.
Toss me.
What?
I cannot jump the distance. You'll have to toss me.
Aragorn nods slowly. He turns to lift Gimli.
Oh. Don't tell the elf.
Not a word.
With one swift move, Aragorn tosses Gimli across the span and into the throng of Uruk-hai, taking them by complete surprise. Aragorn jumps the distance himself and fights alongside Gimli. Aragorn and Gimli successfully delay the advance of the never-ending supply of Uruk-hai. hacking them off the edges of the narrow causeway as quick as they can advance. Interior Helm's Deep Gate night. Theoden observes Aragorn and Gimli. He turns back to his men.
Shore up the door.
A group of soldiers carried beams to dam the door to the ocean outside. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements night. The Uruk-hai load a grappling hook onto an enormous crossbow. The men feverishly work to shore up the Helm's Deep gate. Aragorn and Gimli continue their efforts on the causeway outside the gate. The Uruk-hai ready the crossbow and fire it up to the upper battlements. The soldiers fall back from its landing. It grips onto the inside of the wall. The Uruks fire another. The hook grapples to the inside of the wall. The soldiers try in vain to dislodge it. The Uruk-hai use the hooks as pulleys to pull great siege ladders laden with Uruk-hai to the upper battlements. The ladders hook themselves on contact, and the Uruk-hai make to continue the fight. Interior Helm's Deep Gate night. The soldiers successfully reinforce the gate. Exterior Helm's Deep gate. Aragorn and Gimli continue holding off the onslaught on the causeway. Theoden's face appears in the crack in the gate.
Gimli, Aragorn, get out of there!
A final board is put in place to seal off the crack. Legolas calls to them from the top of the battlements.
Aragorn.
Legolas drops a rope over the edge. Aragorn grabs the rope in one hand and Gimli in the other. Legolas pulls them to safety. The Uruk-hai rush past them and attack the gate once more. Legolas pulls Aragorn and Gimli up the wall. More grappling hooks are fired. More laden ladders are raised. The Uruks storm over the wall. The soldiers fiercely battle against them. Aragorn and Gimli reach the top of the wall. Legolas and some soldiers pull them to safety. Interior Helm's Deep gate. Theoden moves away from the gate with Gimli.
Pull everybody back! Pull them back!
Gimli? Gimli says, pull back, pull back. Exterior Helm's Deep battlements. A hopeless stream of Uruk-hai stream up the ladders, press against the outer wall, charge the main gate. The scant supply of soldiers fire arrows fruitlessly against them. The Uruk-hai break through the gate and pour in.
They have broken through. The castle is breached. Retreat.
As one, the soldiers on the battlements break and run into the keep. The Uruk-hai stream up the steps to prevent the retreat. Exterior Fangorn forest. Treebeard walks lazily through the forest, carrying Merry and Pippin in his branches.
I will leave you at the western borders of the forest. You can make your way north to your homeland from there.
Merry and Pippin do not respond. They look dejected. Suddenly, Pippin looks up with a gleam in his eye.
Wait, stop, stop!
Merry looks over to Pippin, curious. Treebeard stops.
Turn around, take us south.
Treebeard looks to him, perturbed.
South? That will lead you past Isengard.
Pippin smiles.
Yes, exactly. If we go south, we can slip past Sauron unnoticed. The closer we are to danger, the farther we are from harm. It's the last thing he'll expect.
Merry looks away, confused. Treebeard ponders this for a moment.
That doesn't make sense to me. But then, you are very small. Perhaps you're right.
Pippin breathes a sigh of relief and smiles.
South it is, then. Hold on, little shirelings.
Treebeard begins his slow plod through the forest again. Merry looks over at Pippin, incredulous.
Are you mad? We'll be caught.
No, we won't. Not this time.
Exterior Ithilien day. Faramir and company, with Frodo and Sam in tow, come to the top of a ridge and stop. Osgiliath, positioned astride the Anduin River, stands before them. Smoke plumes from its buildings, and in the far distance, nestled in the mountains, is Minas Tirith.
Osgiliath burns.
Mordor has come.
The rangers walk down to Osgiliath. Frodo stands before Faramir, observing.
The ring will not save Gondor. It has only the power to destroy. Please, let me go.
Faramir hesitates, lost in indecision. Then he gestures to his men.
Hurry!
Frodo and Sam are pushed forward.
Faramir, you must let me go.
Exterior Fangorn Forest day. Treebeard plods along with Merry and Pippin riding in his branches.
And a little family of field mice that climb up sometimes, and they tickle me awfully. They're always trying to get somewhere where they...
Treebeard's expression drops, his eyes grow wide, and he stops in speechless horror. The edge of the forest is utterly destroyed. Burnt stumps and mangled bits of trees are all that remains.
Many of these trees were my friends, creatures I had known from nut and acorn.
Pippin looks down at Treebeard with pity.
I'm sorry, Treebird.
They had voices of their own.
Treebeard looks to the distant Isengard, now treeless as well with smoking caverns.
Saruman.
Treebeard shakes in fury.
A wizard should know better.
Treebeard stands amidst the desolation and emits a furious roar.
There is no curse in Elvish, Entish, or the tongues of men for this treachery.
A sound emits from the forest behind them. Pippin whips around, his eyes grow wide.
Look! The trees! They're moving!
The borders of Fangorn stir, howls fall across the landscape. Merry looks to Treebeard.
Where are they going?
They have business with the orcs.
Treebeard's eyes narrow in fury.
My business is with Isengard tonight. With rock and stone.
More howls sound. Ents, dozens of them, pour out of Fangorn and stand behind Treebeard.
Yes.
Treebeard begins plodding down the slope.
Come, my friends. The Ents are going to war. It is likely that we go to our doom. Last march of the Ents.
The Ents march behind Treebeard through the ruined portion of Fangorn down the long slope to Isengard. Exterior Osgiliath Day. Faramir and his rangers lead Frodo, Sam, and Gollum into Osgiliath. Osgiliath is under siege. Soldiers run everywhere in its defense as the rangers pass in. Faramir and his rangers cut through a battle zone, ducking friendly arrows as the city is being defended. Faramir approaches one of his officers.
Faramir, orcs have taken the eastern shore. The numbers are too great. By nightfall, we'll be overrun.
Frodo seems suddenly stricken. Sam looks to him.
Frodo!
It's calling to me. It's calling to him, Sam. His eyes almost on me.
A shrill cry drowns out Sam's words.
Hold on, Mr. Frodo. You'll be all right.
Frodo is horrified. Sam speaks to him, but Frodo does not hear him.
Take them to my father.
Sam and Frodo are hustled through the rangers.
Tell him Faramir sends a mighty gift, a weapon that will change our fortunes in this war.
Sam breaks their grip a moment.
You want to know what happened to Boromir?
Faramir turns to Sam. He looks upon the little hobbit with intense curiosity.
You want to know why your brother died? He tried to take the ring from Frodo. After swearing an oath to protect him, he tried to kill him. The ring drove your brother mad.
Before Faramir can respond, a cry screams across the silence.
Watch out!
A large boulder smashes into a tower, crumbling it. Frodo's head lolls around. His eyes roll into the back of his head. He looks at the skies.
Mr. Frodo?
They're here.
Faramir looks down at Frodo in fear. Frodo foams at the mouth.
They've come.
A shrill cry penetrates the air. Faramir and his men look to the sky.
Nazgul!
Everyone looks up and cringes. High-wide Ariel on a Nazgul, riding atop his fell beast, surveying the ruined Osgiliath. Frodo stares at the Nazgul, transfixed. Faramir grabs him and drags him off. Sam takes off after them. The rangers and soldiers take cover in Osgiliath, endeavoring to stay out of sight. Gollum cowers at the end of his rope. Faramir deposits him within a ruined tower.
Stay here. Keep out of sight.
He exits as Sam enters to accompany Frodo. Faramir shouts to those on the battlements.
Take cover!
Faramir ducks as a fell beast soars fiendishly close to the rooftops of Osgiliath. Exterior Helm's Deep Hall Day. Banners of the White Hand fly atop the battlements of Helm's Deep. The Uruk-hai are everywhere. It is completely overrun. A band of Uruk-hai run a battering ram into the door of the hall. Interior Helm's Deep Hall. A group of soldiers work to barricade the door. Theoden watches them with despair.
The fortress is taken. It is over.
Aragorn runs to Theoden. Legolas carries more furniture to the door.
You said this fortress would never fall while your men defended. They will still defend it. They have died defending it.
Another deafening crunch. The women and children in the glittering caves panic. They cling to each other. Eowyn gives comfort where she can. Aragorn looks around the hall.
Is there no other way for the women and children to get out of the caves?
Theoden stands silently, staring at the floor.
Is there no other way?
There is one passage. It leads into the mountains, but they will not get far. The Uruk-hai are too many.
The Uruk-hai batter the door once more. Aragorn pleads with Gimli.
Tell the women and the children to make for the mountain pass. Barricade the entrance.
Theoden looks over to Aragorn and Gimli.
So much death. What can men do against such reckless hate?
Another sickening crack at the door. Aragorn thinks a moment. He looks to Theoden.
Ride out with me.
Theoden turns to him, confused.
Ride out and meet them.
Theoden walks to Aragorn, a light glimmering in his eyes.
For death and glory.
For Rohan, for your people.
Gimli looks up at the window to the hall.
The sun is rising.
Aragorn turns to the window. The first light of the sun streams through it.
Look for my coming at first light on the 5th day, at dawn. Look to the east.
Aragorn looks back to Theoden with grim determination.
Yes. Yes, the horn of Helm Hammerhand shall sound in the deep one last time.
Gimli looks over to them with excitement.
Yes!
Crunch! The force of the battering ram throws men to the ground. They scramble back up to hold it. Theoden places his hand on Aragorn's shoulder.
Let this be the hour when we draw swords together.
Aragorn nods, understanding fully. Gimli climbs a stairway to the horn of Helm Hammerhand at its summit. The ram crunches against the door again.
Fell deeds awake. Now for wrath. Now for ruin and a red dawn.
Theoden places his helmet on his head. Gimli blows on the horn. It sounds a deep blast across the depths of Helm's Deep. The Uruk-hai crack through the door and pour into the hall. Theoden raises his sword.
Forth, Jorlingus!
The decimated army on horseback charges out of the hall. Exterior Helm's Deep day. The horses blasted up the hall under the standard of Rohan. They charge down the roads of the keep, slicing through stunned Uruk-hai as they ride. Gimli continues blowing on the horn, sounding its low blast through the keep. They charge out the main gate and down the causeway, knocking Uruk-hai off the narrow walkway as they go. They fight bravely as if it were their last stand. Aragorn suddenly looks up. Between two massive boulders, in the light of the dawning sun, a white horse rears on the horizon. Aragorn sighs with relief. Gandalf looks down at the scene below him. Theoden looks up and cheers. The Uruk-hai turn to face the new enemy. The Uruk-hai outside of Helm's Deep is still quite massive, taking up the entire volume of the plain. Gandalf sits atop Shadowfax, ready.
Theoden King stands alone.
Eomer rides up behind him.
Not alone.
He draws his sword.
Rohirrim!
A large group of riders emerge from behind the rise. Theoden smiles.
Eomer.
Eomer raises his sword and orders the Rohirrim forward.
To the king!
The Rohirrim and Gandalf charge down the ridge toward the waiting throng of Uruk-hai. The Uruk-hai move into the position to receive this new threat. They ready their lances before them. As the Rohirrim and Gandalf near the Uruk-hai front line, the sun emerges from behind the ridge and momentarily blinds the Uruk-hai, giving the Rohirrim first strike to overrun them. The Rohirrim and Gandalf fight against the Uruk-hai, quickly decimating their numbers. Exterior Isengard day. The Ents storm into Isengard, throwing stones and orcs, crushing them underfoot, tearing down their towers. The orcs are losing. Saruman rushes to his balcony and looks out. Isengard is overrun by hundreds of Ents, destroying everything that Saruman has worked to build up. Saruman rushes from one side of the balcony to the other, helpless to stop them. An Ent works on the supports to the dam.
Break the dam, release the river.
The Ent succeeds in breaking the supports. Water breaks through the cracks until the dam shatters. Orcs fall to their deaths in the rushing torrents. Saruman looks on in horror as the freed River Isen flows down the mountain and into Isengard. Merry and Pippin grasp Treebeard tightly. Treebeard stands proud of his destruction.
Pippin, hold on!
The orcs run for their lives before the flood. The Ents brace themselves.
Hold on, little hobbits.
The water hits the Ents full force, but they are unmoved. The water flushes the running orcs and their constructs over the edge of the Isengard caverns. Orcs working in the depths of the caverns, water floods in on top of them. The orcs in the caverns run hopelessly from the flood. The water destroys their bridges, forges, everything. The river floods all of Isengard, destroying everything and washing it into the caverns. Only the Ents escape untouched. Exterior Osgiliath Day. Frodo, in some kind of trance, walks slowly away from the safe corner. Sam tries to speak to him as he passes.
What are you doing?
Frodo pays him no attention. The Nazgul on his fellbeast flies over the city, looking for his prey. Frodo walks out of the Tower of Safety and through the rushing throngs of soldiers. Sam rushes to the door of the tower, panicked.
Where are you going?
Slow motion, Frodo stands atop a high wall. Before him, the fellbeast flies into view. Frodo raises the ring. The ring in Frodo's fingers. Faramir spots Frodo across Osgiliath. Frodo stands atop the wall. The Nazgul flies over him, ready to strike. Sam runs up the stairs, screaming silently. Frodo closes the ring in on his finger. Sam tackles Frodo and wrestles the ring away from his finger. They fall to the ground just as the fellbeast closes its massive claws around the spot where Frodo was standing only moments before. Faramir fires an arrow into the side of the fellbeast. The fellbeast screams and flies away. Sam and Frodo roll down the stairs and off the edge, coming to a dead stop on the ground below. Frodo rolls on top of Sam, pinning him to the ground. Frodo draws Sting and holds it at Sam's neck. Anger and distrust etched on his face. Sam looks at the blade with fear, tears running down his face.
It's me. It's your Sam. Don't you know you're Sam?
Frodo's madness fades into shock and confusion. Frodo backs away from Sam and slumps against a wall. Sting clatters to the ground. Sam touches his neck lightly and pulls himself up. He looks at Frodo. Frodo stares at the ground and shakes his head in shock.
I can't do this, Sam.
I know. It's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here.
Sam stumbles to his feet and leans against a wall.
But we are.
Over the ruined Osgiliath, the fellbeast continues to circle. Sam keeps watching the terrible scene and speaks absently.
It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. But how could the end be happy?
Frodo panting against the wall. Exterior Helm's Deep Day, the Rohirrim decimate the retreating Uruk-hai.
How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened?
Theoden shouts proudly atop his horse.
Victory! We have victory!
Gandalf watches the Uruk-hai run, smiling.
But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow.
Aragorn looks up with relief. The battle is over. Exterior Isengard Day. The waters continue flowing over Isengard, destroying all the evil that grew there. The Ents chase the orcs into the pits.
Even darkness must pass. A new day will come.
Merry and Pippin watch the goings-on with wonder, riding atop Treebeard.
And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer.
The Ents stand tall in the flowing water.
Those were the stories that stayed with you.
Saruman, trapped in Orthanc, slowly he backs away from the edge of his balcony and closes the doors to Orthanc.
That meant something. even if you were too small to understand why.
The waters completely flood the ring of Isengard to the very edges, wiping out everything Saruman had done, preparing the land for a renewal.
But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now.
Exterior Osgiliath Day. Sam stands overlooking Osgiliath.
Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. Kept going back because they were holding on to something.
What are we holding on to, Sam?
Sam looks at Frodo. Sam walks over and lifts Frodo to his feet.
There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for.
Frodo is moved by Sam's determination. He smiles grimly. Faramir approaches them. Sam stiffens at his approach. He kneels to their level.
I think at last we understand one another, Frodo Baggins.
Madril approaches from behind Faramir. Faramir stands to face him.
You know the laws of our country, the laws of your father. If you let them go, life will be forfeit.
Faramir looks at Madril, unwavering.
Then it is forfeit. Release them.
Frodo looks at Faramir with gratitude. Sam shakes the ranger's hand from his shoulder. Exterior Plains of Rohan Day. The fleeing Uruk-hai run from Helm's Deep over a ridge into the plains. Standing on the other side of the ridge is a large forest. The Uruk-hai run directly for it. Theoden, Aragorn, Éomer, and the rest of the Rohirrim ride to the top of the ridge and stop.
Stay out of the forest. Keep away from the trees.
Éomer looks with fear at the forest that has sprung up. Inside the forest, the Uruk-hai charge between the trunks mindlessly. The defenders of Rohan watch silently from atop the ridge as the last of the Uruk-hai runs in. Suddenly, the trees move. Screams emit from within the forest. The defenders look on in fear and surprise as the forest eliminates the last of their enemies. Exterior Helm's Deep Hall Day. Éowyn and the other women and children emerge. Aragorn climbs the steps to meet Éowyn at their summit. She looks upon him with delight and holds him. Exterior Helm Deep battlements. Soldiers pile the bodies of the dead Uruk-hai. Legolas walks through the carnage and spots Gimli smoking his pipe. He stops, stroking his bow.
Final count, 42.
42! That's not bad for a pointy-eared elfish princeling. I myself am sitting pretty on 43.
Legolas' face drops. Suddenly he fires an arrow at the Uruk that Gimli sits upon.
43.
He was already dead.
He was twitching.
He was twitching because he got my axe buried in his nervous system.
Gimli demonstrates by working the axe in the Uruk's head. The hands and feet twitch as he does. Exterior Isengard Day. Merry and Pippin stand waist deep in the water.
Doesn't look too happy, does he?
Not too happy at all, Mary.
Saruman and Wormtongue look hopelessly down from their prison. Merry and Pippin watch them near the outer wall.
Still, I suppose the view would be quite nice from up there.
Oh yes, it's quality establishment. I hear the staff are very good.
Merry holds his hand out from his head, measuring his height against Pippin's. Pippin catches this out of the corner of his eye. Merry pretends to be playing with his hair.
What are you doing?
Nothing. The world's back to normal. That's all.
No, it isn't. I'm starving.
Merry picks up a floating basket and tosses out its contents.
Good luck trying to find something decent to eat around here. Probably dead rats and moldy bread.
Pippin picks up a floating apple. He looks to the sky for a moment, trying to figure out where it came from. Suddenly, he sees another and another. Merry sees what is happening. They follow the trail of apples until they find a turkey, and then a basket of apples, and then jackpot! The hobbits look with rapt anticipation at the food storehouse in the wall of Isengard.
Saruman's storeroom.
The two barrels labeled from the south farthing of the Shire. Merry and Pippin look with reverent awe on the barrels.
I don't believe it.
Can't be.
They crack open the top of one of the barrels.
It is.
Long bottom leaf.
Mary takes a huge sniff of it.
The finest pipe weed in South Farthing.
It's perfect. 1 barrel each.
Pippin suddenly stops.
Wait, do you think we should share it with Treebeard?
Share it? No. Dead plant and all that. Don't think he understands.
He leans into Pippin.
Could be a distant relative.
Pippin smiles.
I get it. Don't be hasty.
Mary whips out his pipe.
Exactly. Bro.
Mary and Pippin laugh. Treebeard passes close to the storeroom. He hears the laughing and looks in on them. Exterior Osgiliath day. Faramir leads Frodo, Sam, and Gollum through the turmoil to a waterlogged tunnel.
This is the old sewer. Run straight under the river through the edge of the city. You'll find cover in the woods there.
Frodo and Sam look at him gratefully.
Captain Faramir, you have shown your quality, sir.
Faramir stands back, surprised at Sam's words.
The very highest.
The Shire must really be a great realm, Master Gamgee, where gardeners are held in high honor.
Sam looks away, embarrassed. Faramir smiles.
What road will you take once you reach the woods?
Gollum says there's a path near Minas Morgul that climbs up into the mountains.
Faramir looks surprised. Gollum tries to slink away.
Cirith Ungol.
Faramir snatches Gollum up by the neck and holds him against the wall.
Is that its name?
No!
Faramir tightens his grip.
No!
Frodo, they say a dark terror lies. A dark terror dwells in the passes above Minas Morgul. You cannot go that way.
Frodo, wrapped with indecision.
It is the only way. Master says we must go to Mordor, so we must try.
Faramir looks to Frodo, seemingly desperate to talk him out of it. Frodo looks resolute again.
I must.
Faramir throws Gollum down. He stands before Frodo and Sam.
Oh, Frodo, go with the goodwill of all men.
Frodo looks at Faramir, touched by his sincerity.
Thank you.
Frodo starts off into the sewer. Sam follows. Gollum starts to slink to the sewer. Faramir grabs him up by the neck again, pinning him against the wall. Faramir looks at Gollum intently.
May death find you quickly if you bring them to harm.
Gollum doesn't respond. Faramir throws him into the tunnel. Gollum slinks away with a final scathing glance to Faramir. Interior Osgiliath sewer tunnel day. Frodo and Sam walk easily through the tunnel. Gollum limps behind them.
Come on, keep up.
Gollum slumps to the ground in pain. Sam stops.
Mr. Frodo, didn't mean for them rangers to hurt you. You know that, don't you? He was trying to save you, see?
Gollum looks up to Sam in wonder. I can't hear you.
Save me.
So there's no hard feelings. Forgive and forget.
No hard feelings. Yes, Master.
Sam steps back for Gollum to pass. Gollum crawls into the culvert, following Frodo. Sam stands back and waits for him to wriggle his way in.
Nice habit, Chief.
Very decent of you. Very decent indeed, Gollum.
Exterior plains of Rohan day. Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, Theoden, and Éomer ride to the top of the rise in front of Helm's Deep, looking off into the distance.
Sauron's wrath will be terrible, his retribution swift.
In the far distance, the skies over Mordor crackle and the darkness spreads. The others look to Gandalf as he speaks.
The battle of Helm's Deep is over. The battle for Middle-earth is about to begin. All our hopes now lie with 2 little hobbits.
Exterior Ithilien day. Gollum leads Frodo and Sam through the woods.
somewhere in the wilderness.
Wonder if we'll ever be put into songs or tales.
What?
Wonder if people will ever say, let's hear about Frodo and the Ring. And they'll say, yes, it's one of my favorite stories. Frodo was really courageous, wasn't he, Dad? Yes, my boy, the most famous is of hobbits. And that's saying a lot.
Frodo laughs and turns to Sam.
Well, you've left out one of the chief characters, Samwise the Brave. I want to hear more about Sam.
Frodo turns to Sam. Sam smiles sheepishly. Frodo's smile fades. He stops and turns to Sam seriously.
Frodo wouldn't have got far without Sam.
Now, Mr. Frodo, you shouldn't make fun. I was being serious.
So was I.
Frodo walks onward. Sam, dreaming of being a great storybook hero.
Samwise the Brave.
He gives his backpack a heave and follows Frodo. Frodo smiles. The hobbits walk through the forest in the distance.
Smeagol.
We're not going to wait for you. Come on.
Pan to Gollum crawling over a short hill, struggling.
Master, Master the Factors, Master in the Hordes, Master will just promise, don't ask me, promise me, Master betrayed us, wicked tricksters, we're gonna kill them both, and then we take the precious, and we're gonna be the master.
Smeagol runs and hides behind a tree.
But this won't happen, he knows. He's always watching.
Gollum peeks out from behind the other side of the tree.
And we stab them out for the eyes and make them cry.
Smeagol nods eagerly.
Yes, yes, yes. Kill them both. Yes, no, no.
He backs away from the tree.
It's too risky. It's too risky.
The hobbits come over the rise behind Gollum.
Where is he? Where is he going? Hey, Gollum, where are you?
Smeagol.
We could let her do it. Yes, she could do it. Yes, precious, she could. And then we sensed it once they're dead.
With a smile, Gollum leaps out of hiding.
Command hobbitses, young race, Siguriel, Smeagol will show you the way.
Gollum walks through the forest, Frodo and Sam close behind.
Follow me.
Gollum continues leading the hobbits through the forest to their eventual destination. Pan up over the forest, over Efelduath, to reveal Mordor, the Tower of Barad-dûr with the Eye of Sauron burning on its summit. Mount Doom belches fire and ash into the sky. Nazgul on fell beasts circle the skies. Fade to black. The end.